One Piece Blades of Fire Chapter 161-180. Chapter 161. The Silence of Justice. There are still 12 opponents like this. Whitebeard was shocked when he heard that he was only the captain of one of the 13 divisions. He simply couldn't imagine how many strong men there were in that world. Since you didn't kill it, who is it? Kuchiki Byakuya asked with a gloomy expression. The 5 old immortals standing at the top of the world's power are collectively called the Gorosei, 5 elders. The ones who kill Zhongyang are the old men who take a generation of ghosts. Whitebeard finished speaking. A pirate brought a phone bug, swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and said to Whitebeard in a panic, "Dad, look at this, what's happening in Alabasta now?" Alabasta, and what big things can happen to you, that place. Whitebeard opened his mouth in confusion, but his expression suddenly changed when his eyes swept across the screen. What is he doing? Is he going to tear his face with Marine? What happened? Marco and others also gathered around, but when they looked at the picture on the screen, they all swallowed their saliva, the shock in their expressions was exposed, and no one spoke. Kuchiki Byakuya frowned slightly, with curiosity in his heart, but with just such a glance, his whole body suddenly slammed, and he said with some surprise, "It's the skills of Captain Yamamoto after Bankai. Remnant Fire is too big knife West Remnant Sun prison clothes. The commander-in-chief must have passed it on to him, otherwise he wouldn't be able to use Bankai's." In the picture at this moment, Zhongyang is wrapped in flames and holding a residual fire sword, as if covered with a setting sun, like a fire god. As he walked towards the 2 admirals step by step, the high-temperature flames melted the ground, and magma emerged. Kuzan and Akainu looked at each other, and they could see fear in each other's eyes. The threat of publicity at this moment was too great for them. The 2 of them didn't hesitate at all. The ice bird, ice spear, ice ball, laser beam, light bullet, etc. all burst out in an instant. But what made them unbelievable was that Zhongyang didn't even evade or block these attacks, and let them smash. Come to yourself. How can? Of course, these only made them feel surprised and puzzled. What really made them feel incredible, and what made them pale was that when these attacks landed on Zhongyang, they didn't have the slightest effect, and they were all swallowed up by the flames on him. Okay, it's my turn. When Zhongyang's hoarse voice came out, the whistling of the flames became more intense, and the figure disappeared directly at this moment. When it reappeared, it was already in front of the 2 admirals and smiled at them, but the smile fell in their eyes. But it is like the smile of death, extremely scary. Zhongyang directly inserted the knife into the ground, and the next moment his fists covered in flames were wrapped around his waist, and at this moment, Kuzan and Kizaru suddenly came back to their senses without any hesitation, and the elemental room wanted to escape directly. It's not too late to leave after we decide the outcome. Besides, the chance to watch my press conference live is very rare. Zhongyang looked at the 2 of them as if they didn't hear what he said, still rushing away as if they were far away, with a cold face. "It's an acquaintance, since you don't give me face, don't blame me. Remnant Fire Double Bones." At this moment, the double fists that were held at the waist moved slowly, but they were indeed blasted towards the void. Although it was simple and no different from the ordinary double bones, the abnormality was directly revealed from the moment it blasted out. When the 2 bones blasted out, 2 pillars of fire burst out from the fists. Wherever they passed, the void was twisted, the speed was fast, and they seemed to be aiming, and they caught up with Kuzan and Kizaru in an instant. In their jaw-dropping expressions, the hot pillar of fire penetrated directly through their chests. I don't know if it was accidental or deliberate, but the hole left by the flames burning through their chests avoided the key point. However, these serious injuries made them all weak to the extreme, although they were still conscious. But has been unable to act. At this moment, the figures of the 2 of them smashed directly to the ground from midair. It is conceivable that if they really smashed down, it is estimated that they will die. The 37 Hanging Stars of the Tao. When Zhongyang's spiritual power was surging, he stretched out his hand, and in a moment he used his spiritual power to create a hammock above the ground. When the 2 of them slammed down, they were directly caught by the hammock. After a few violent bounces, they lay down on the hammock, and then the hammock disappeared, and their figures hit the ground directly, but no new injuries were caused. 3 Admiral defeats. In fact, at the very beginning, the Marine Vice Admirals in Alabasta were going to go to catch the Grim Reaper together, but the Marine headquarters issued a military order not to interfere in their previous battle, so until the end they all held back and did not pass. With Kuzan Kizaru's body being penetrated by flames and being saved by death, this battle of marine honor and disgrace came to an end. All over the world, there is almost no sound at this moment. There is a moment of silence, and this moment is also called the silence of justice by later generations. Gollum. Marine 3 Admiral, really defeated? Hey, that's not true. Marine was defeated by pirates. These are the 3 admirals who claim to be the most powerful. When people all over the world came back to their senses, they all swallowed their saliva, and the incredibleness in their expressions was revealed. However, the pirates reacted to the opposite. In addition to being shocked, they also gloated over their misfortunes. Hey, who is this god of death? It's like he just emerged from the world out of thin air. This kind of strength is probably stronger than Whitebeard, but why is it unheard of before? Marine lost the most powerful battle, but was saved by a pirate. If this spread, Marine may have lost his face, ha ha ha. From today onwards, the world pattern will be changed because of him. However, with such arrogance, Marine can't give up. Maybe he will use the strength of the entire army to eliminate him, but even if he is erased, this humiliating past will make people laugh at it. And beyond that, the biggest question on the minds of everyone around the world is, what is a press conference? Chapter 162 I am Zhang Yang, I am back. At this time, Marineford was already in chaos. The 3 people representing Marine's highest combat power were defeated by a pirate. This was unprecedented and unheard of. How can all Marines not be afraid? How not to panic? In the conference room of the Marine headquarters, everyone's faces turned ugly at this moment. Sengoku's whole body seemed to be pouring out for a moment, and he slumped on the chair, his eyes dimmed and muttered, "Really? Did it happen?" Quote. Although everyone present expected the result of the defeat of the 3 Admiral, and they were prepared, but when it really happened, it still made them unable to bear it. Not only that, he also slapped Marine and the world government hard at the end. The pirates even saved Marine at a critical moment. With the end of the war, Marine's dignity, the absolute justice he upheld, also collapsed in vain this time. Staff Crane, there is no way to make amends. A vice admiral below looked at the crane with a solemn expression. It's impossible. It's up to the world government to do this. Crane Staff Officer Vivi shook his head with helplessness in his expression. It can only be like this. Now, if we want to take a wrong step, the consequences will no longer be bearable by our Marine. Sengoku's eyes were complicated, and he took out the phone bug. Everyone looked at Sengoku in silence. The next moment the phone bug was connected, Sengoku said, "Now. What should we do? Gather Marine's power to obliterate this god of death." The old voice from the phone bug made the expressions of Sengoku and others look ugly. A faint anger was rising in Sengoku's chest, and he said in a cold and unkind tone, "What about our Marine's dignity?" Quote. If the world government has no dignity, what's the use of your Marine's dignity? Hearing this voice, everyone in the conference room turned gloomy, and there was anger in their chests. At this moment, Sengoku broke out and cursed at the other end. The face of your world government is the face, our Marine's. Aren't faces even faces? X your mother, you 5 immortal brains are really sick. What kind of thing? You have to have the ability to do it yourself. Sengoku, disregarding his identity, was literally burning with rage at this moment. Marshal Sengoku, this is an order. It looks like you're not in a good mood, please calm down first. Sengoku wanted to say more, but a blind tone rang from the phone bug, and the Gorosei 5 elders hung up. Sengoku, I just scolded really hard, ha ha ha. There was silence, but Garp slammed his fist on the table and laughed as he looked at Sengoku. Garp. Staff Crane glared at Garp. I also think I'm scolding vigorously, but if I haven't scolded enough, the immortal will die. Sengoku let out a dry laugh, and Staff Officer Crane was a little helpless, and then said to Sengoku with a dignified expression, Marshal, what are you going to do now? Are you really going to use the strength of the whole army to kill him, although we may save some by doing this? Dignity, but consequences. Crane Vivi shook his head. Sengoku understood what he meant, and said, knowing that it is a dead end, I have to go, I am forced to help, I can't beat it, I can't beat it. Let me think about it. Let's see what this god of death is going to do next. Sengoku took off his glasses and rubbed his temples. Could it be a victory conference to defeat 3 Admiral and defeat Marine's dignity, ha 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 ha. While eating the senbei, Garp said with a dignified smile, but there was always such a solemn look in his eyes. Garp. The Holy Land Maria Jo, the World Government Hall, a white-bearded Gorosei, 5 elders just hung up the phone bug, and the 5 old men continued to look at the figure on the screen with a solemn expression. Are you sure it's that Zhang Yang? The old man who held a generation of ghosts nodded and said, the strength he shows now is not at the same level as that at the time. And there are reservations. How sure are you? Not big, no more than 60%. Hearing his words, the other 4 looked shocked. You must know that this is the strongest among the other 5, but hearing that he only has a 6th level confidence, it makes the others not surprised. It's better to let Marine try. It's best to let them do it, and the few of us are still not suitable to do it. The long white-haired Gorosei, 5 elders said, I don't know how he was resurrected though. But prepare to die again when you are resurrected. Sorry to keep you all waiting. In front of the screen, the apologetic Isho, Vivi bowed a little, then continued to speak. Gentlemen and girls, pirates, Revolutionary Army, Marines, etc., everyone, good afternoon. Such enthusiastic opening remarks would have ushered in warm applause and excited roars, but in the current situation, no one can be happy, and their expressions are extremely solemn. Of course, some pirates are more schadenfreude, and they can still make jokes on such occasions. Is this a way for pirates to win the favor of everyone? Wouldn't he be embarrassed if he knew how everyone in the world was reacting at the moment? Maybe it will be cold, ha ha ha. On the screen, Zhang Yang is sitting cross-legged on the ground at the moment, as if talking at home. Maybe some people already recognize me, maybe some people recognize me as the god of death, and maybe some people don't even know I'm that onion. Quote. Everyone can still understand the last sentence, but the first 2 ambiguous words left a lot of people confused, but made a small number of people look ugly, including Sengoku, Garp and Crane. Also including Gorosei, 5 elders. Could it be? Are you going to say it? This is the voice of a very small number of people, with guilt, fear and inconceivable. However, it's okay, I believe that from today onwards, each of you will firmly remember me. Zhang Yang Isho, but this smile is cold, as if it was deliberately made to be seen by some people, so that the eyes of the caring person shrink suddenly at this moment, and Zhang Yang's hoarse voice spreads next. I'm Zhang Yang, I'm back. Chapter 163 Zhang Yang's live show. Zhang Yang. This name sounds familiar. I seem to have heard it somewhere. He's not the one. The Major Marine who was killed by Whitebeard. When the words of the god of death fell, people all over the world were stunned, and some of them couldn't remember it for a while. But after all, this person's affairs have also shaken the world one after another, but it was because of the relationship between time and new events. To bury the name Zhang Yang in the depths of his memory. At this moment, as someone mentioned it, everyone finally remembered it, and their expressions were extremely horrified. Is that the Marine genius? The future Marine Marshal, the Marine Major Zhang Yang who is allied with Fishman Island? Isn't he dead? The bodies were all divided in half. But at this moment, the person who knew the inside story, when Zhang Yang said his name, trembled all over his body. Sure. I still said it. I know you will be shocked to hear this news. Of course some people may be afraid, ha ha ha. The horse Isho said, maybe some of you still have the impression of me as Major Marine before my death. I died once, but as the saying goes, if you don't die, there will be blessings in the future. You don't believe me. It's also a bit confusing, but I am indeed resurrected, which is what you see now, the current death. It's also the former Marine Major Zhang Yang. However, when he said this sentence, Zhang Yang's tone was obviously a bit sarcastic, but no one has paid attention to this now. At a moment, reporters from all over the world are calling newspapers, holding cameras and taking pictures on the screen. The pen in his hand swiped on the notebook, recording the text. This is big news. But, since he has been resurrected, why didn't he go to Whitebeard for revenge? Instead, he came to Marine, his former employer, to do it. With the strength he has shown now, it is more than enough to return to Marine as an admiral. Quietly, he seems to be answering this question soon. At this moment, Zhang Yang on the screen stretched out 3 fingers and said slowly, I know that there are 3 questions you most want to know right now. 1. Why didn't I go to Whitebeard for revenge? Secondly, why do I have to fight with Marine? Third, what am I going to do? However, I don't intend to talk about these 3 issues at the beginning. On the one hand, it is to make this press conference more exciting, and on the other hand, it is convenient to give some old and immortal things a period of time to adapt. Bad heart. Hearing Zhang Yang say this, Garp laughed heartlessly while eating senbei. Gorosei 5 elders, faces are probably as black as coal at the moment, ha ha ha. However, what Garp said this time was basically correct. The Gorosei 5 elders who watched the video in the Holy Land Maria Chow had a face that was not as black as coal, but it was almost the same. The expressions were extremely gloomy and ugly. Among them, the blonde Gorosei 5 elders directly ordered go down, use all means to cut off the broadcast signal. These 3 questions, I can reveal a little bit first. The last thing I want to say is the news that can set off a storm in the world, and of course also the inside story about my death. But in order to let everyone understand, from beginning to end watching my live show, I still intend to ask you guys not to let the world government and Marine cut off the broadcast signal in the middle. I'll thank you in advance. That's right, just after Gorosei 5 elders ordered people to cut off the signal, Zhang Yang came to this question. It's actually very simple. He had already expected the behavior of the world government or Marine, so that's why he left the suspense and saved the screening. Went well. HMPH, even if he says that, the signal will be cut off. As soon as Gorosei 5 elders finished speaking, a senior official of the world government in a black suit ran in, looking flustered, except for some places where the signal is cut off and cannot be shown. Basically half of the places are playing normally. And a lot of admiration for Marine's heroic publicity, and wanting to know the suspense he left behind. At this moment, the spontaneous protection signaled. Can't cut them all off. And the world newspaper at this moment will immediately print the newspaper as soon as it receives the news on the screen. Even if the video cannot be viewed, the newspaper will gradually spread to all parts of the world. Damn. Hearing this news, Gorosei 5 elders' face was really dark. After scolding, holding a generation of ghostly elders said, we still underestimate Zhang Yang's influence in Marine, and people's understanding of unknown things. That longing. Then what should we do now? Asked the blonde Gorosei 5 elders. Let him speak with peace of mind. We are the people who have the highest power in the world. Don't mess around. After the end, we will let the Marine headquarters and the world government hold a joint press conference. Whitebeard continued. At that time, even if it is true, it will become false. You said that the world believes in a former Marine hero who is now a pirate, or will believe in the person in charge of the direct government. Kuzan and Kazaru could not move, they were all lying on the ground, looking down at the black-robed figure in front of them. Because Zhang Yang has a loudspeaker, even if Zephyr is still lying in the pit in the forest, Zhang Yang's voice can be heard. Zephyr looks at the sky and listens to Zhang Yang's words, frowning and muttering to himself, maybe that's right. After this incident, I should also go to find what I think is justice. Guys, you all come down and put down the proverbs by the way. I will also formally introduce it to everyone. Zhang Yang's voice clearly fell into the minds of everyone on proverbs. They saw Zhang Yang's initial burst of strength, and also saw the scene where Zhang Yang easily defeated the two admirals. The shock on his face was unprecedented, and even the war intentions he mentioned before, with the end of the war, disappeared. The terrifying strength revealed by Zhang Yang at the end made them feel a deep sense of powerlessness. Chapter 164 The truth is revealed to the public. As the buzzing sound continued to sound in the air, the next moment a huge spaceship with thunder and lightning all over it appeared on the screen. In the sight of everyone was shocked and exclaimed out loud, "God, what did I see? Is this a spaceship?" Among them, the most shocking was Peng Jabek, the chief scientist of the world government. When he saw the spaceship on the screen, his glasses couldn't help but lift up, carefully observing the structure of the proverbs in the picture, until a certain moment, the pupils shrank suddenly. This is simply impossible for modern technology to accomplish. This ship is called Ark Proverbs. It is a spaceship. Its power can sink an island with one move, even stronger than Hades, one of the three ancient weapons. Zhang Yang introduced it during the descent of Proverbs, but when his words landed in the minds of everyone, they all looked dumbfounded, swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and said in shock, "One move can destroy an island." The figure on the boat is Hakai Mahak, one of the King Shichibukai, and the crocodile of Shichibukai under the king, and Enel, the god of Sky Island who has been with the god of death. How did this warrior get along with the other one? Who are they? And when the hull fell, revealing the figures on the boat, everyone was shocked again. Are these people all the gods of death? No, are they the same group as today's Zhang Yang? As you can see, everyone you see right now is part of my boat. Zhang Yang looked at the figures on the boat and said with a smile, "I believe there are a few of you who you all know, then I'll stop talking nonsense. This samurai was once the world's greatest swordsman hundreds of years ago, Ryoma, a knife in the historical data. He was the one who killed the dragon. As for the other one, it's a trainee crew. We are together with one goal, to overthrow the world government." Although Zhang Yang said it simply, when it fell into everyone's minds, it made everyone overwhelmed, but Zhang Yang did not give them time to react and digest, and then said, "Now I will give you the first question. Promise. It's actually very simple. It wasn't Whitebeard who killed me, so naturally I have no reason to seek revenge from him. Then the question is, who killed me, and who used dirty tricks to blame Whitebeard?" At this moment, everyone watching the screen gave up their breath, the reporters swallowed their saliva, and Vivi's hand holding the pen was shaking, ready to record what Zhang Yang said next. "My death is actually a conspiracy controlled by the world government. From the clearing of the illegal land in the Sabayati Bottom Archipelago to the alliance with Fishman Island to realize the peaceful coexistence of Fishman and human beings, what I have always insisted on is true justice. I want to create a just world, but because I touch the interests of Tenryubito, because I am out of the control of the world government. Or rather, out of the control of the Gorosei, 5 elders. So." Zhang Yang paused and continued. "Gorosei 5 elders personally shot me to kill me without anyone knowing it, and put the blame on Whitebeard for my death, and the Fishman Island I sheltered suffered as a result. Catastrophic. However, what they never expected was that I was still alive, and I came back to expose all this in public." Zhang Yang's words made everyone not sure whether to believe it or not. The degree of shock was even greater than before. The reporters didn't even write to record at this moment. Because of the shock, the pen they were holding slipped from their fingers. "Is also not found. Hey, just kidding. Is it really the world government that killed this messenger of justice? Isn't this true?" Intellectually, they should believe what Zhang Yang said, but the Gorosei 5 elders are the people who hold the highest power in this world, and they can't even control their own opinions for a while, and it is inappropriate to say who is right and who is wrong. "Now, I'm back, I will keep my promise, break into impel down, rescue Princess Otahime and the captured Fishman Island Fishman. Didn't you always want to know what I'm going to do next, except this? I'm also going to send the 5 Gorosei, 5 elders into the lab with my own hands, goddamn it, so that I can vent my anger. Zhang Yang's voice spread all over the country, especially the last sentence, which completely tore the face of the world government, or was in the same boat as the Gorosei, 5 elders, which made the hearts of people who were already shocked to be bombarded again. As a man determined to uphold justice, I want to overthrow the hypocritical and ugly world government. Whether you are a pirate, a marine, a revolutionary army, or an aspiring warrior. If you have the determination to follow in my footsteps, 3 days later, gather at Impel Down, and we will personally open the curtain of a new era. Zhang Yang's words sounded like a bell, and some people even saw the shadow of Roger of One Piece, King of Pirates from Zhang Yang's body at this moment. At this time, Rayleigh was still sitting on the roof of the Sabayati Island Square, took a sip of wine, then looked at the black-robed figure on the screen, showed a smile, and muttered to himself, Roger, I'm afraid you didn't think of it either. Not long after you kicked off the era of the great pirate, such an outstanding young man inherited your will. Although it is not based on exposing the blank for 100 years, this method is quite effective. I just don't know when it's time to move my hands, and my hands and feet will still be agile. On the other side, on the New World Mobidia, Whitebeard looked at the screen and laughed loudly. Gulululu, I have already said that Zhang Yang is really a talent in marine, although he didn't get on my ship, he's still pretty, it's a pity, but... These words really ignited my fighting spirit when I was young. I'm looking forward to sending 5 old things to the laboratory. Gulululu. Kuchiki Gyakuya was also full of fighting spirit when he said this. Whitebeard, let's reach a united front and go to the Impel Down that Zhang Yang said. I really want to see this man as soon as possible and ask about the traces of Captain Yamamoto. Chapter 165 Temporary Ending. At this moment, when the outside world was in shock, all the Marines, including the 4 Vice Admiral, looked at Zhang Yang with extremely complicated eyes on the seaside of Alabasta. Kizaru and Kuzan, half drooping their eyelids, looked weakly at Zhang Yang, especially Kuzan. There was a hint of indecision in their eyes at this time, obviously they were entangled in something. Zephyr Admiral. At this time, Zephyr also walked out of the forest, and the Marines let out a cry, making way for Zephyr. Mr. Zephyr, do you want to come with me? Zhang Yang's words were full of solicitation, which made all eyes turn to Zephyr at this moment. They were already hit hard. If the Marine veteran left, the consequences would be unimaginable. You've grown up, and since you've decided, go ahead bravely. Go and find what you think is justice. Zephyr walked towards Zhang Yang step by step. His eyes met. Zephyr walked to Zhang Yang's side. Vivi paused for a moment. The corners of his mouth wriggled. He walked forward again, towards the warship, and at the same time, a loud voice sounded. Return. Mr. Zephyr. Actually, you already have a decision in your heart. But you still can't let it go. Zhang Yang looked at Zephyr's figure and muttered in a low voice. Zephyr's footsteps stopped, and he couldn't say anything, and he also muttered to himself, maybe. Watching the 7 warships slowly leave the port and head towards the distance on the sea, Zhang Yang said the second half of the sentence. However, when the minions of the world government are exposed, you will have to leave sooner or later. At this time, on the Ark Proverbs on the ground, everyone looked at Zhang Yang and felt that at this moment, Zhang Yang seemed to be no longer hidden, and when his sharp edge was exposed, he was the real him at this moment. Similarly, Alabasta's subjects and royal families are all silent and complicated. Maybe they chose to surrender under the coercion of Zhang Yang's powerful strength, but after witnessing the live broadcast, they couldn't tell what it was like for a while in their hearts. The hatred and anger that had arisen from being forced to surrender before was gone at this moment. The biggest news in the world. After this flamboyant personal show ended, the United Daily News published a new issue of the newspaper, which was written in bold red handwriting at the top of the newspaper, which was extremely eye-catching, and the text naturally did not disappoint. Major Marine genius, Justice Messenger Zhang Yang resurrected. Zhang Yang is the god of death, and the god of death is Zhang Yang. Reaper Zhang Yang almost defeated the three admiral in a crushing way, and Kuzan Kizaru was seriously injured. How terrifying is his strength. Gorosei, 5 elders, the highest power in the world government, killed Major Zhang Yang and put the blame on Whitebeard. Is it true or false? The death god Zhang Yang and the world's largest swordsman Mahak, Crocodile, who is also one of the kings Shichibukai, Enel, the god of Sky Island, and the dragon-killing samurai Ryoma, the 5 people formed a pirate hundreds of years ago. What does the regiment want? Zhang Yang threatened to break into Impel Down. Rescue the people on Fishman Island, including Otahime, who were imprisoned. In the face of his terrifying strength, is this a maddening speech? In the end, he invited people with aspirations, regardless of their status, as long as they are willing to join hands to open the curtain of the era, and they will gather at Impel Down. What is this new era? Will anyone come? Who will come, and how many? Let's wait and see. The focus is on Impel Down. This newspaper will continue to report the relevant progress of this matter for everyone. The bolded headlines in the main body of the newspaper make it clear at a glance. There was an uproar all over the world, one after another. Big headlines, like bombs, seemed to be banging on the sea, and there was an endless stream of huge explosions. Captain. At this moment, on a medium-sized pirate ship on the Sea of the Great Voyage, a big fat man held chicken thigh meat in his left hand, and took the newspaper dropped by today's news bird in his right hand. Said, "Captain, I don't have to read it to know what the paper says. You can eat what you eat. It's not like we didn't watch the live broadcast of the death god's publicity. If such a big thing is not reported in the newspapers, I'm afraid you can lose weight just around the corner." The red-haired one said angrily to the big fat man, then took the newspaper, read it seriously, and kept mumbling, "Although it's the second time, it's still very shocking." A man who is both feared and admired. "Captain, are we going?" Deputy Captain Ben Beckman exhaled a puff of smoke, then looked at the redhead. "How can this kind of battle be without me? Even if I am missing an arm, I still have red hair. This is also Captain Roger's wish. Go, Impel Down." At the same time, Buggy the Clown was sitting on a small wooden boat. Because there was no communication equipment, he was not able to see the scene of Zhang Yang's live broadcast. However, at this time, looking at the newspaper in his hand, Buggy the Clown looked shocked, but even more excited. "Be sure to find the redhead quickly, maybe this time is a good chance to become famous." At this moment, Fishman Island is like a new life. It is completely opposite to the days when he was bullied by pirates before. Fishman and the mermaids are running and celebrating on the street, which is extremely lively. In the Great Hall of the Dragon Palace, Neptune and the 2 ministers on the left and right, including the 3 Neptune brothers, were extremely excited at this time. Neptune laughed and said, "I have finally waited for this day. It's just around the corner to rescue Otoji Jinbei and the others." Minister left, "Go and count the troops that we can use on Fishman Island. Except for those who are left to guard Fishman Island, the rest will be handed over to Minister Wright. This time, I will lead the attack on Fishman Island myself." Neptune looked at the 3 Neptune brothers and said, "This time, the 3 of you will come with me, which is also a chance to hone your skills." "Father, I also want to help Brother Zhang Yang." Neptune looked at Shirahoshi, and after thinking of her Aquaman's abilities, he nodded and continued, "Quickly check Noah's Ark." Chapter 166 Reaction of All Parties. Baldidge, the island of white soil on the Great Waterway, is filled with yellow sand and piles of rocks, but it is in this extremely desolate environment that the base camp of the Revolutionary Army stands. At this time, in the conference room of the Revolutionary Army base camp, there were only 2 people sitting, the revolutionary leader Monkey D. Long and Ivankov, and on the table in front of them, there were newspapers, and the headlines were clearly bolded in red. The font reads, "The world's biggest event. Dragon, do you think someone will join that flamboyant lineup in 3 days and go to Impel Down to make trouble? Ivankov looked solemn. We all understand the principle of shooting the first bird with a gun, but often because of this, no leader appears, and many scattered sands can't be gathered together. Looking at the black-robed figure in the newspaper, Long continued, but he did it. This is not only the good image he left to the world during his lifetime, but also the influence of the public opinion behind this conspiracy. If the government doesn't like Marine and hates Marine, they will go. However, I don't think that we can stumble over the world government with them. We have fought against them for so many years, but we still haven't gained much advantage. It hides that there is too much power, which makes the world often incomprehensible. Ivankov frowned and Vivi shook his head, indicating they couldn't. Of course, after all, the world government has been established for more than 800 years, and there are many countries that join it. Although the sand-like strength is useful, it does not play a key role. Long pushed the folder from the table to Ivankov, and continued, but what if we could let our revolutionary army put up a banner and develop it? Play our flag. Ivankov was stunned for a moment, not quite understanding the meaning of the dragon, then opened the folder and saw the 4 bold characters, Mutual Aid Agreement, on the first page inside. With Vivi's eyes shrunk, Ivankov quickly flipped over and read the agreement with a shocked expression. If you can conquer pirates and some marines, then the revolutionary army will belong to Zhongyang. Dragon, are you crazy, just handing over Nuoda's group to an outsider? Long shook his head and said solemnly, the purpose of our revolutionary army is to overthrow the hegemony of the world government and to free the people. Now we have met someone who can make our plan faster, and we have encountered an unprecedented opportunity. It should be well grasped. I don't want to regret not making this decision now a few years later. Ivankov was silent for a moment, then said slowly, have you discussed it with the old guy from the Revolutionary Army Committee? I'm sure they'll agree, with your vote. Long smiled, and then said, I hope you will contact the Revolutionary Army hidden in Alabasta now, hand over the communication phone bug to Zhongyang, and inform him about the contents of these agreements. If this agreement is passed, I will contact him. Call, negotiate. Under the sea in the second half of the Great Route, a tall and burly man, with a naked upper body and wide trousers on the lower body, with a rope tied around his waist, shuttled through the seawater. This man had black hair on his head and shoulders, a pair of black horns on his forehead, a long beard, and a red scale tattoo on his left arm. It is the beast Kaido, the only existence known as the strongest creature in the world, among all creatures in the 3 worlds of sea, land and air. Back 10 minutes ago, on an unknown island, Kaido of the Beasts was surrounded by a group of younger brothers, and one of them was thinking about the news in the newspaper. When the word, Zhongyang, the strongest in the world, was mentioned, Kaido of the Beasts immediately became interested. I want to see this Zhongyang and see if the strongest in the world is an exaggeration. Boss, are we going to make a fuss at Impel Down? Many young disciples became excited all of a sudden. They knew that Kaido's character didn't like to pay attention to these things. Although he was a fighting maniac, there were basically not many existences who could make a move under him. Idea. No, I'm going alone. Kaido sat up from the chair and walked straight to the outside of the island. Many of the younger brothers were stunned for a moment. The fire of excitement that had risen was also quenched by a splash of water at this moment. Knowing that Kaido did not like people disobeying his orders, everyone also without continuing this topic, one of them said, then I will prepare a boat for you. No, I'm going through the sea. If I can drown, then you can break up. Because of this, the above picture of Kaido traveling alone in the water appeared, but it is worth mentioning that because Kaido has already dived into the deep sea, there are many sea kings, but Kaido is not afraid at all, letting the sea kings move towards him. Bite it, but in the end, all the teeth are broken. I really don't want to live. If I can't drown and bite, I really hope this guy named Zhongyang can kill me. In addition to the red hair pirates, Whitebeard pirates, some big forces, and Kaido, other little-known pirates, including one person and the entire pirate group, think this is a famous sea pirate. The good times are all gathered from the Great Root and the New World. We are willing to be part of the Death God pirates and take down the world government. And many pirates who hated the world government and used to be slaves also made statements at this moment. For a time, the pirates in the sea moved, and the destination was naturally impelled down. In addition to the pirates, the marine side has naturally also moved. The Marine headquarters has summoned all the Marines above the lieutenant level of the Marine branch and the elites of each branch. At this moment, on the 5th floor of Marine Academy, several figures wearing justice cloaks are gathered here. These figures are naturally the same as Zhang Yang's first-year medical studies, including Tina, Bastille, Yin and others. At this time, everyone was at the school-level military rank. The purpose of our gathering here today is very simple. Let's discuss whether the world government is still worthy of our service. Chapter 167 CP9 Arrest People. Tina and the other Marines also watched Zhang Yang's comeback show. For a while, tears filled their eyes were dumbfounded, and they had mixed feelings. So there was a scene where a group of people who graduated from the 5th floor of the same Marine Academy gathered, but it was not Tina who suggested that everyone gather to discuss, but Bastille. At this time, Bastille is doing well in the Marine branch, and now it is like a duck to water, and the rank has quickly changed to colonel, and I heard that if you perform outstandingly and impel down and achieve good results, there is a great possibility that the incident will fail. After being promoted to Commodore. Let's discuss whether the world government is worth our lives for it. No one thought that this sentence would be said in the mouth of Bastille, who was in full swing. Once he said it, everyone was stunned, including Tina, who deeply loved Zhang Yang. What's the matter? Is there something on my face? Bastille was stunned for a moment, seeing everyone be shaking his head. His thoughts turned to think of the reason, so he said with a wry smile, Zhang Yang and I are also brothers, even if this bullshit is in the military rank now, but still working for the world government. Quote. Okay, let's get down to business. Bastille's expression became solemn, and then said, everyone knows what happened this time. At the beginning, I felt that Zhang Yang had a lot of doubts, but nothing could be found. What Zhang Yang has implemented from beginning to end is justice. Let the people. The crowd applauded. But that's what made the Gorosei, 5 elders murderous and framed the pirates. We really need to think about our sense of security. When Bastille's voice fell, everyone's expressions were complicated, and Tina said at this time, the foundation of the world government is too strong, and it may not be enough to rely on publicity. But on the other hand, we can't help the emperor. Maybe we'll follow Zhang Yang's footsteps that day. We are all Marine generals present. If the development goes well, the lowest achievement in the future will be Commodore level. But with the matter of publicity, we should really think about it, even if we insist on justice, but under the rule of the world government under the circumstances, what can be done is really limited. I'm going to quit Marine. The one who first proposed to retreat was Yin, who was usually indifferent and not very talkative, which surprised everyone. But Binz was not surprised. Everyone only knew that Zhang Yang's death had a big blow to Tina, but they didn't know that in the days when the news of Zhang Yang's death spread, the only purpose of letting Ain insist on training all the time was to avenge Zhang Yang. Although he is also strange, but it is the truth. Now that you've decided, let's go. As the door opened, a hard voice suddenly came out, and everyone looked at the door vigilantly and exclaimed, Mr. Zephyr. I'm sorry about Zhang Yang, but I concealed his death from you. Zephyr came in, he first said apologetically, and then continued, the world government is this really chills me. If you want to leave, just leave, as long as you stick to the justice you think in your heart. Mr. Zephyr, what about you? Come with us. Bastille and others were stunned for a moment, but they didn't expect Zephyr to agree. After all, I have stayed in Marine for so many years, and I can't do anything against Marine for the time being. I have tendered my resignation and retired. After saying goodbye to Zephyr, Tina and other Marine elites took the lead and wanted to leave Marine. They just found a purpose and planned to board a warship and leave Marine headquarters from the Gate of Justice, but It's you who want to leave Marine and join the pirates. Just at the port, officials wearing world government suits and guards have been guarding here, and a captain wearing a military rank is standing behind them, with a hint of guilt in his expression, and keeps his head down. Walcho, you told them. Smoka looked gloomily at the captain, who was a friend of his. Pirates are pirates. Zhang Yang has now become a pirate, not only occupied Alabasta but also injured 3 admirals, but also gathered a group of villains to overthrow the world government. Calm down. Voljo was already a little guilty, and he blushed even more in the face of the questioning. It's our right to leave the Marine, even the world government shouldn't stretch so far, so much. After Bastille said sarcastically, a leading world government official laughed. However, now is a special period, so naturally we need to be treated specially. However, I think it is necessary to use some force. Everyone's expressions changed. At this moment, these government officials burst out with extremely fast shavings and rushed to their side. When they punched them, those who responded slowly were directly knocked to the ground, shackled, and quick to respond. Yes, such as Aine, Bastille, Tina, and Binz and 2 others all escaped. Who are you? This power is simply not something ordinary people should have. CP9 belonging to the World Government Intelligence Organization. There were only 2 people still standing still. One was a rough-looking man, but now it was the other who was talking, a man with a pigeon on his shoulders. The World Government Intelligence Organization that has only heard of CP0 CP8. Everyone frowned slightly. Obviously they had not heard of CP9. I haven't heard of it. It's natural, but you don't need to know. When the voice of this young man with pigeons on his shoulders fell, there was a sonic boom in the air. Before they could react, he appeared in front of them and smashed Bastille and Jozu with both fists. In the abdomen, even if the 2 used armament hockey on the abdomen in time, they were still blasted out by this punch. Ladies, are you going to take it easy, or do you want to resist? Aine and Tina's expressions turned cold. Aine took out his long sword and slashed directly at the man, while Tina stretched out her hand, and a powerful impact burst towards the man like a bullet. I won't be soft-hearted to the lady. Chapter 168 Conference of World Governments. Marine, it is absolute justice. But now, how is this justice performed? If the slave trade in the chaotic zone is ended, if peace is reached between Fishman Island and human beings, if even Marine himself can kill innocent people indiscriminately, then this justice is not worth it. Everyone, let's fight. Let CP9 and even the world government witness the power of our batch of most potential students. Tina raised her head, surrounded by like-minded companions. It's not just her, Aine, Bastille, Onagumo, Lien and Smoker, who have a gap, all fight for one goal. He raised his head, facing Lucci who looked indifferent, like a brainwashed fighting machine. Meanwhile, the other side. Sengoku was already devastated, but still someone pressed him. Sengoku, you have to give me an account of what happened today. Zephyr came to Sengoku, stared at him with his eyes fixed, and said in a cold tone, as Marine prison, even if you are bound, do you want to keep people here? I've been at Marine for 50 or 60 years and I've never heard anything so ridiculous. I approve their withdrawal from the Marine. When will Admiral not be able to decide even the departure of the school-level Marines? Now that the world government has made such a publicity thing, when the truth is out in the open, even our Marines are going to pursue the power of justice. This is human freedom. What we should do now is to examine ourselves. What exactly should Marine do? Is absolute justice just a fig leaf? The quality of the sentence made Sengoku look ugly and roared. Then tell me, what should I do? Sengoku picked up the other party's collar, his eyes blushing under the dark circles. I know. The world government is a bunch of inhuman bastards, a blank 100-year history, Buster Call, Tenryubido, slave trade. The disadvantages are countless. Then what I'm first doing is Marine and becoming Martial Marine. To change all this. Yeah, now there's a publicity thing that has ruined Marine's prestige, but what should I do? first also quit Marine and become the revolutionary army that overthrew the world and conquered it. Sengoku looked struggling. Do you think I want to be the bad guy? Do I want to be silent to my dead comrades? I also want to be a Marine hero, a messenger of justice, and live in the spotlight. Sengoku said finally, his voice lowered, but this world is not black and white, most of it is gray, the so-called justice. It's just a compromise. You don't know what will happen if I'm not the marshal, or someone else is the marshal. There are good pirates, but only a small part. The revolutionary army who fights for peace has some, but there is also a part of it. Human greed and evil will be found everywhere. I didn't stay here to be the lackey of the world government, but in order to punish those scumbags. This is my justice. Sengoku put down the collar of the other party, returned to his desk, and continued to process a pile of documents. Go ahead, publicity represents justice, naturally you need an ugly villain, this clown. It's up to me. Sengoku, you don't have to do this. Zephyr choked up, his eyes flashing. Go and take away your disciples, the reason. I suspect that this group is closely related to the pirate, death god, and they are going to be distributed to impel down. As for what happens during the distribution process, I am not in charge. Sengoku wrote a document and handed it to Zephyr. Zephyr was gone, looking at the empty office. Sengoku flashed to loneliness. Soon, the phone rang and thought that the world government was calling. Looking at the phone bug, Sengoku suddenly had the urge to smash this thing with a punch. He rubbed his forehead, endured it for a long time, and answered the phone. Hey, this is Marine headquarters. Is it Sengoku? I'm the head of the world government's intelligence department. My purpose is clearer than you. Is it the Marine officers who are leaving? Humph, they are only a part of it. Taking advantage of this incident, our world government has to clean up a large number of betrayal worms. Not only the Marine Department, the Army Department, government agencies, and even some chess pieces placed in the pirates. Quote. There's going to be a big purge. The situation changed suddenly, and soon, the world government began to act. The Holy Mariajoy, representatives from all over the world, journalists, and even the Gorosei, 5 elders themselves attended a meeting. Around the death, caused by a number of issues, discussed and resolved. The meeting was broadcast live around the world, and the host was a representative from the Gorosei, 5 elders, who held the highest power in the world, an old man with a long white beard and a black suit. What has happened recently is a serious test not only for Marine, but for our world government. This Gorosei, 5 elders had several microphones in front of him, wearing a black suit. Reporters from within the world government gathered under the stage, some taking pictures and writing notes. The words of the god of death before are the biggest culprit in causing this world turmoil. Major Zhang Yang is a hero of Marine. He has played a very important role in promoting world stability, peace and justice. We are very sorry for his death. I also understand the actions of all parties in the world, including the irrational behavior of some Marine personnel. Behavior. Major Zhang Yang's corpse has been divided into 2. Although he was strong during his lifetime, he was far from being as strong as the god of death. Then someone will ask why the knife in his hand is in the god of death. On the screen, the figure of Gorosei, 5 elders stood tall and straight, his face remained unchanged, and his words came out without hesitation. The world was watching this scene, and so was Zhang Yang. Zhang Yang, is that agreement true? Can you let me lead these people? I am a god. With my command, this behavior is guaranteed to be foolproof. I will show them the wisdom of God. Alabasta's revolutionary army has brought the phone bug including Long's words to Zhang Yang. Although he was a little surprised by this agreement, Zhang Yang also expressed his preliminary agreement to this agreement, and now he is waiting for Long's words. Have you seen the old immortal on the screen? When will you kill him, and when will I promise you? At this time, Ryoma was looking at the picture on the screen with bright eyes. After the appearance of the god of death, we conducted a more thorough investigation, and finally found out that this was a shockingly designed conspiracy. This god of death actually has imitation fruits, but his ability is very special. If you can change into one person, you will be the current Major Zhang. Quote. And in the continuous digging, we also found that the death of Major Zhang was actually caused by him framing the guy for Whitebeard, waiting for his strength to recover. The time has come, and now he is pointing the finger at us. The real culprit is the god of death. He used the image of Major Zhang to cause a commotion, a turmoil in the world. His intention is to overthrow the world government, establish hegemony, and make justice disappear from now on. I made the decision to imprison those marine elites. I don't want to do such an irrational act because they were temporarily blinded by a conspiracy. The development of the tense after that was something I didn't expect, but that's exactly what it is, and it's more of a case for Marine's justice. Here, I hope, everyone, come back and let's fight evil together. Chapter 169 The Real Action. After all, the resurrection of the dead is still difficult for everyone to accept for a while, and the words of Gorosei, 5 elders have indeed played a great role and are more acceptable to the public. Once it spread, some Marines who retreated were hesitant, and the idea of going back took up more. For a time, they all felt that they were irrational. Death is a pirate. How could he be deceived and lose the justice he upholds? I'll just say, where can such a thing come back from the dead? This god of death is really ambitious. Fortunately, the world government issued a statement in time, otherwise we would still be helping the tyrants. Oh, it's a pity that Major Zhang is such a good marine, but he has become a victim of this great conspiracy. In this world, the life of the good people is really low, and the evil people are more harmful. We must quickly get rid of the dangerous element of death. Children must remember that when they grow up, they must be a marine and make a contribution to the protection of world peace. Voices similar to this continued to appear in every corner of the world, and for a while, the god of death became like a mouse crossing the street, and at the same time, he also felt a sense of guilt for the world government towards Marine, and trusted them more. However, the more trust, the greater the disappointment, isn't it true? Boss, why didn't I find out that you ate the imitation fruit? Before Enel could finish speaking, a splash of water in his hand smashed directly from the top of Zhang Yang's head, making Zhang Yang wet and scolded. You fucking mentally retarded, eat your sister, eat it, I eat it and imitate it. Fruit, it's time to imitate the old Gorosei, 5 elders. Gorosei, 5 elders are also in a hurry, their brains are amused, and they dare to talk about things like devil fruit. Be careful when you lose your wife and break the army. Self-defeating. In the holy place of Mariajoy, the 5 Gorosei, 5 elders were sitting together and talking. Isn't it a bit risky to do this? What if someone actually eats the imitation fruit? Although it is a countermeasure that we came up with in a hurry, it is also the safest one, and you don't have to worry about what you said. I have asked the espionage personnel scattered around the world to carefully check it, and there is no possibility of this. Sexual. I still want to fight a turnaround. I see how this rat crossing the street can be bombarded by others. You, still young. One of the Gorosei, 5 elders was laughing sarcastically, but the next moment, a related person in a black suit ran in with a panicked expression. There was a cold sweat, and the voice trembled. There is a person who can imitate fruit. What, hasn't everything been investigated clearly? The Gorosei, 5 elders were all stunned for a moment. The short bald Gorosei, 5 elders suddenly became angry, and the other people's expressions suddenly became solemn. If this is the case, then the seriousness of the consequences may be difficult to undo. This is the latest issue of the newspaper, and the photo of that person and the imitation fruits have been exposed. Although he ate the imitation fruit, he didn't know how to use it, so he put it on hold. Until the end of the press conference. The spy handed the newspaper to Gorosei, 5 elders in fear, and he could find out the shadow area in Gorosei, 5 elders, heart at this time. After reading the newspaper, the faces of Gorosei, 5 elders are even more ugly, but the photos are nothing, but the words of these reporters are really sharp, and I can't wait to pick the bigger the better. For example, Do the Gorosei 5 elders think that there are 2 identical devil fruits in the world? And if so, then you really need to study it carefully, maybe there will be a second shock fruit. Although the sentences in the newspaper were not straightforward, everyone could understand the meaning in the cryptic expression, which really made the faces of these 5 people who were old and not dead for thieves burn hot. If that's the case, then there's no way. After a sigh, a series of icy orders were issued in an orderly manner, and the real attitude of the world government appeared. Forcibly end the world conscription, and let the 3 outstanding people come to the world government to report immediately. Also notify Dr. Peng Jabek. Dispatch an ancient weapon, the King of Heaven. The 3-day deadline has entered the final countdown. In the face of the world's doubts, the world government did not use words to do useless work this time, but really made a big move, an atmosphere of urgency filled with gunpowder smoke. With the blood draws the curtain. CP0 to CP8 conduct a summary analysis of the rebel forces in various places, while CP9 is responsible for the assassination of some pirates with moderate forces. For a time, people panic. At the same time, the largest branch of the Revolutionary Army ushered in a devastating blow. I'm Monkey D. Dragon, what's going on with you? At this time, on an island where the artillery fire was full of gunfire and the smoke of gunpowder, in a camp, a man with injuries and blood soaked his clothes, his lips were chapped, and an anxious voice came from the phone bug in his hand. Although there is only one person from the other party. But he can't stand it anymore. The strength is too strong. While speaking to the other end, the man looked outside the tent, hiding behind a pile of boxes. Do you know who is coming? Asked the dragon. I don't know, I've never seen it before, but I'm afraid my strength is comparable to that of Admiral. Ah. At this moment, Long, who was originally at the headquarters of the Baldij Revolutionary Army on the White Earth Island, was in a noisy conference room. There was a sudden loud roar from the phone bug in Long's hand, and then a scream suddenly sounded. Hey, hey. Buzzing. No matter how anxiously the dragon shouted, the phone bug had started to ring in a continuous blind tone. This is the second place. Who are those 2 people? Long's brows were furrowed, and his face was ugly. Before he received the call just now, in fact, a larger branch had been attacked by a strange man. But at this moment, the phone bug in front of him rang again, and Long swallowed and picked up the phone bug. This is the XX branch. It was hit by a strange woman. Chapter 170, Kuzan's Defection. After Zhang Yang and the Revolutionary Army united, signed an agreement, and reached a consensus, a shocking news quickly spread around the world. Unidentified 2 men and 1 woman destroyed the 3 branches of the Revolutionary Army in a short period of time. Although I don't know who they are, but without exception, at this sensitive moment, it is absolutely not Marine or the world government that will attack the Revolutionary Army branch. When did Marine and the world government come out with this character? It's too scary to destroy a branch by 1 person. There has been a lot of action recently. At this time, killing chickens to warn the monkeys and suppress the momentum of the rebel forces. The bustling market in the past is also a bit deserted during this time. Although it is not autumn, the feeling of the bleak autumn wind is more prominent in the streets. Basically, people don't go out unless they buy things. Of course, this is also due to the constant patrolling of a large number of Marines, but the most important thing is the recent atmosphere of oppression and tension. Finally came the last day of the agreed deadline. During the 3rd day, the actions of the world government became more and more frequent. Not to mention the interior, just the arrangement exposed outside Impel Down made the pirates and others feel alarmed. The arrangement of nearly 20 warships, this time is cruel. On a warship, a Marine looked at the warships lined up around Impel Down, and the black muzzle facing the front, and opened a startling opening for a while. Look, these are densely packed outside the Impel Down, and the Marines on the warship are all strictly selected, and none of them are ordinary people. After all, this siege gathered elite Marines from all over the world, and the lowest rank is the lieutenant. The Marine next to him raised his eyebrows, motioning for him to look at the Marines who were arranged around him, and then continued. Except for Suru Vice Admiral, who sits at the base camp, the sea soldiers above the basic lieutenant level will all participate in this battle. Furthermore, the world government will also send troops to participate in this battle, including the newly researched humanoid weapons. I heard that they were modeled after the King Shichibukai. The Marine who spoke was obviously older and wore a cloak of justice. Even if these words came out of his mouth, he was still horrified and frowned. Sir, this time, will the Whitebeard, who is known as the strongest man in the world, come back? The young Marine swallowed a mouthful of saliva, hesitantly. There was a hint of panic in her eyes, but she still said this sentence. Whitebeard. He's still a normal person. Although he is a monster with terrifying strength, he is still a human being. He will also be injured and bleed, and then die of old age. But this time, the one who should be most cautious is not him. Speaking of this, the Major's expression was extremely solemn, and there was a trace of fear in his eyes. According to rumors, the strongest creature in the sea, land and air world, Kaido of the beasts, has already set off from the territory. I was sentenced to death 40 times. Even if I was hanged, the chains would be torn off. Even if I was guillotined, I could smash the guillotine. No one can kill him, even he has tried to commit suicide many times without success. At this time, an expressionless man with a high hat came over, and said without any emotion in his voice, Kaido. Maybe it will become a weapon for us to contain the god of death. Stalo Bay Vice Admiral. The two looked nervous and hurriedly gave a salute. At this time, several world government ships came from afar, but what was shocking was that in the sky above them, a huge black object appeared in the sea fog. As time went by, the pirate ships that came to impel down also gradually emerged, but they were all third-rate pirate groups that were not very eye-catching, but at this moment, finally let the outside world know that they are now floating on impel down. What is the use of the huge black shadow in the mouth? Some of the emerging pirate ships were instantly sucked into the sky, that is, the location of the huge shadow, and shattered directly. The world government dispatched the King of Heaven, one of the 3 ancient weapons, to guard the sky above impel down. I don't know at that moment, the news quickly spread to the sea, and at this moment, the pirate ships of most forces have gathered near impel down, and without being noticed, they have tightly surrounded impel down. It's not easy to break through. We still don't know the power of the King of Heaven. What's more, there are nearly 20 warships now. I'm afraid we will be beaten into a hornet's nest before we show up. And just when the pirates were helpless about impel down, the Marine headquarters was in trouble again. At this time in the Marshal's office, Garp, Crane and Kizaru were all there. Sengoku took off his glasses and kept rubbing his temples. His expression was tired, his face was not only gloomy, but his heart was even more galloping. That's right, just now, there was another Admiral defection incident. Admiral Kuzan quits Marine. This news came from the outside world at first. Sengoku and others didn't believe it at first, but after dialing Kuzan's phone number, they found out. This thing turned out to be true. Immediately, a wave stirred up thousands of layers of waves, and the whole world was in an uproar. First Akainu was executed, then the veteran Admiral Zephyr withdrew from the prison, and now even the only 2 remaining admirals have left. For a time, the momentum created by the world government collapsed at this moment, and slapped the world government again. Kizaru, go get Kuzan back. Sengoku was a little helpless, and handed over the order from the world government to Kizaru. Let me catch it. Kizaru was stunned for a moment, with a reluctant look on his face, and said with a wry smile, Marshal Sengoku, you also know that Kuzan's strength is obviously stronger than mine. If he is willing to come back with me, he will not leave, but fight and fight. However, didn't you give me a hard job? If you want to go, go, that's so much nonsense. Now there is only you and Admiral, don't let you go, should I go in person? Just after scolding Kizaru with a resentful expression away, the phone bug on the desk began to call, buzzing non-stop, making Sengoku's mood worse and worse. Order, kill the Marine Thornhead who defected. Chapter 171 Let's Make a Bet. What a bastard. What's wrong? What's wrong with the order of the world government? First a martial marine, not an executioner. Go and tell those old people who are immortal. Don't drag them like 205 every day. This order I refuse to implement. Quote. Hearing that he was going to kill his colleague, Sengoku was in a bad mood, so he scolded him and hung up the phone. Where's Garp? When he came back to his senses, Sengoku found that Garp's figure had disappeared, and looked at the crane suspiciously. The crane handed over a note that said, I'm going to find that kid Zhang. He might be more fun there. Sengoku fell silent. His face was extremely gloomy, and his eyes were very complicated, until at a certain moment, he suddenly slapped the desk and directly destroyed the desk. The loud noise shocked the staff, and he heard Sengoku shout, I'm quitting. Martial Marine, go to hell. Then Sengoku kicked out the door directly, and Suru Vice Admiral watched his actions and retreated helplessly. Marine's actions made some Justice Marines very happy. The prestige of the world government was once again greatly challenged, and Kong had to become Marine Marshal again. At the same time, more and more Marines quit Marine because of Sengoku Crane's departure. At this time, the agreed deadline has come. On this day, Impel Down has become the focus of the world, but for some reason, since the dawn of today, the atmosphere has become even more depressing. There are 20 warships in naval battles, tens of thousands of Marines in land battles, and in the air, there are already famous and powerful kings. Whether or not today's victory is related to whether justice will be wiped out by evil and the stability of the world, do you want your descendants to live in a world ruled by pirates and evil forces? Sengoku retreated. Kong couldn't just get the front line, and took up the responsibility of leading the overall situation. No, this is boosting morale. I don't want to. The voice was like a rainbow, and the roars of tens of thousands of people seemed to shake the mountains and rivers at this moment, and they had the potential to move mountains and rivers. The high-level people have all gone, and now the Marine has a fragmented appearance. It can be said that the spirit and energy have been taken away. Kong sighed, Vivi shook his head, and said nothing. Time passed by in such silence, and as the first raindrops fell on the sea, a circle of ripples seemed to be unstoppable as soon as they appeared. The rhythm was getting faster and faster, and the sky was now light rain. Continuous. Dad, Marine Sand Admiral and Sengoku Garp Crane didn't appear here. The news is true. However, there are 3 unfamiliar guys. It is very likely that they are the people who destroyed the 3 branches of the Revolutionary Army. I haven't seen Zhang Yang's figure yet. Sounds like this keep appearing in other black giants under the deep sea. Where will it come from? The sea breeze kept blowing the sleeves and capes of the sergeants. Looking at the endless, rippling sea in front of him, Kong frowned and rolled his eyes. Although there are tens of thousands of troops stationed, all that can be heard is the sound of rain. At this moment, no one noticed that the dark clouds in a certain part of the sky were thicker. Some people with a keen sense of smell and powerful people raised their heads at this moment and looked at the dark clouds. The sky. Some Marines raised their heads when they saw Vice Admiral. Their eyes turned to the sky, and could not help but follow suit in surprise, but found that the sky was nothing but dark clouds. Boom, boom, rumbling. But the next moment, the deafening roar didn't give any notice. With the sudden appearance of thunder, it was when the sudden burst of rushing away. The unprepared soldiers were a little unstable at this moment, and they were really scared. It turned out to be just thunder. After swallowing a mouthful of saliva, the sailors all let out a sigh of relief. The current atmosphere is too depressing, and the nerves have been tense, so it is no wonder that they were frightened by thunder. But then, they felt that something was wrong, not only because the generals still looked up at the sky, but also because in the dark clouds above the king, the intensity of the thunder at this moment seemed to never stop. Respects are heavy and affectionate. This broken iron sheet is too much of a hindrance. The voice was like a rainbow, and the next moment everyone was shocked. This voice was very familiar to them. Death is coming. You were all afraid of thunder in the sky when you were young, so Wanlei will bring you back to your childhood. When an arrogant voice spread from the sky, the thunderlight became the only color of the sky. The dazzling light made everyone unable to open their eyes, but they still opened a gap. The violent rumbling sounded in an endless stream, and just by the sound, one could imagine the irritability of the thunder and lightning at this time. In the horrified eyes of the Marines, Wandao thunder slammed into the heavenly king above and fell down. The sky was shaking, and the thunder light spread out at this moment, and the most tragic point was that because it was the rainy season, the rain could conduct electricity, and under the thunder, the sky exploded with crackles. What an unexpected place. Kong's face was ugly, and if the other party was in the sky, they would be a little powerless, so they could only watch this scene blankly. The moment the king fell from midair, everyone's expressions changed, and the most horrified was Pang Jabek, who was watching this scene from a distance with a telescope. His expression was horrified. What kind of power is this? Destroyed the power system of the king. How about we make a bet? If you can catch the next move, we'll come down and fight you. Otherwise, we'll keep throwing tailed beast jade in the sky. I'll give you a chance, don't call me a rogue. The voice of Zhang Yang's chuckle fell on the hearts of everyone below, and the faces were ugly, which was obviously looked down upon, and even a bit rogue. Tread. With the sound of clogs, a man wearing purple clothes with a knife scar on his face and holding a knife stepped forward. Let the old man come. Chapter 172. The Moby Dick is here. Even though the world's conscription is ahead of schedule, is he still here? Arc Proverbs. Zhang Yang looked at the figure on the ground, and said to Enel in a whisper, go ahead. The strongest other than that Kuchiki Byakuya. Many people present did not know Fujitora Isho. At this moment, Kong's eyes were focused on his figure, his eyes dignified. The sky roared again, and at this time, the thick dark clouds that had been removed from the upper half of the sky suddenly shrank, until at a certain moment, there was a pitch-black giant ball in the sky, and there were thunder arcs shining on it. Under the terrifying power, it smashed directly at and fell down in the next moment. At this moment, everyone looked up and was shocked. It was conceivable that if it was allowed to come down, I am afraid that the military force deployed outside Impel Down would definitely turn into ups and downs at this moment. As the pitch-black giant ball slowly descended, Fujitora's ears moved and shot straight into the sky. The next moment, he pulled out his sword and blocked Lei Ying. At the same time, the surrounding atmosphere became even more depressed. The weak breathing could not keep up, the rain curtains were all signs of distortion, and even when the raindrops hit the pitch-black giant ball, the section runs through, some meaning riddled with holes. When Fujitora retracted the knife by 2/3, a diamond-shaped transparent object suddenly wrapped the pitch-black giant ball. It kept shrinking and became smaller and smaller. The inside of the diamond-shaped object was pitch black, and there were countless thunder dragons running around. Pong! When the knife was fully retracted into the scabbard, his figure had already fallen from the sky, and at this moment, the diamond-shaped crystal block suddenly smashed into the sea, and it was about to explode. Suddenly, there was a cracking sound of air breaking in the sea. The next moment, the diamond-shaped crystal block that wrapped Lei Ying was hit directly from the sea to the sky under a powerful impact, and it exploded instantly, shaking the world. The thunder light was shrouded under the dark clouds, and it took a long time for it to dissipate. Gulululu, it's dangerous. Before everyone could react to this scene, a deep laughter suddenly spread out, making everyone's face change, and the raised head suddenly lowered at this moment, looking towards the sea, because the sound was clearly coming from below. At this time, the guard was looking at the sea in the distance with the binoculars. Suddenly, there were ship shadows appearing on the calm sea. Seeing this scene, the marine hurriedly shouted, "Whitebeard pirates!" Quote, "Come on!" At this time, Kong's voice came into and out of everyone's ears. Everyone is ready to fight. As soon as the words fell, the fort of all the warships shifted their direction instantly. Marines looked dignified and closely watched the slowly approaching ship shadows. And as the shadows of the boats approached, their true appearances were also revealed to everyone. There were dozens of pirate ships, and the shapes of the ships were large and small. The logos of the pirate groups were also of different colors, with thousands of symbols. Seeing this, the Marines shouted, "The big fleet of pirate ships!" A vice admiral hurriedly ordered, "Where's Whitebeard? Check it out, fast!" Dorma the Ranger. Li Ching McKay. The Maelstrom Spider scored. The Marine said a name every time he moved the telescope, and finally concluded with a solemn expression. Dozens of captains, each of whom were captains in the New World Megatron, a total of 37 pirate groups, but they did not find Whitebeard. And the shadows of its captains. After a pause, the Marine shouted eagerly, "But there is no doubt that these are basically the pirates belonging to Whitebeard. Finally see Impel down. Where is the god of death? I really want to see with my own eyes whether he is so strong. Kill Marine and overthrow the world government." On the other hand, there were voices coming from the pirate ships from time to time, and the excitement in the voices reached Marine's ears, making them look awkward. "Are you going to start shelling now?" "Wait, Whitebeard's pirate ship hasn't come out yet, he must be nearby." "What's the plan? Keep an eye on it." "Boss, Daddy, they are here, are we going to show up now?" Karusim looked at Zhang Yang with a frenzy on his face, and the corners of Zhang Yang's mouth cocked up. The protagonist is always the last to appear on the scene. Let's not hurry, and let's say a group of old foxes are still watching from the bottom of the water. If we go out now, won't I be left behind? The limelight. Let's watch the show first, and when the gophers show up one by one, it's time for us to accept everyone's worship. Look at the water. I can't help but say that because of the appearance of the pirate fleet, all attention was diverted here. When an exclamation sounded, everyone looked solemnly at the water in front of them, and the ripples went round and round, and then air bubbles appeared among the shareholders on the water surface, and the next moment the water surface suddenly bulged upwards like an explosion, setting off a big wave. A vice admiral looked at this scene and said in surprise, "Could it be that?" At this time, a louder and louder sound came from the bottom of the water, and many Marines looked at each other. What sound? Gradually, the sound became louder, and layers of water waves appeared on the surface of the Impel Down, like a vortex, and then a huge black shadow appeared on the bottom of the sea. Looking at this scene, Kong said in shock, "So, their ships come from the bottom of the sea after they are coated." At this time, huge water waves broke out on the sea surface, bursting upward in groups, and then in the center there was a huge boat coated with a membrane from the bottom of the sea with huge waves leaping out of the water and jumping into the air. This boat was huge, the bow is like the head of a beluga whale. "The Moby Dick is here!" Marines shouted with moving expressions. Falling from the air, the Moby Dick stopped firmly on the water. With the arrival of the first Moby Dick, from the bottom of the water there were two similar ships to the Moby Dick, except that they were slightly smaller. The three membranes were broken at the same time. Looking at this scene, everyone in Marine was short of breath and shouted, "The main ship of the Whitebeard pirates." Chapter 173, The Forces Gather. That's First Team Captain Phoenix Marco. Marine, who was holding the telescope, exclaimed, also, the captain of the third team, Diamond Jozu. Captain of the fourth team, Thatch. Captain of Team 5, Foil Vista. Captain of the 8th team, Fishman Namur. Captain of the 15th squad, Fosa. Captain of the 16th team, Azang. This Marine made a final push and shouted, "All 15 captains of the Whitebeard pirates have arrived." At this time, the ship where the captains were facing the execution platform suddenly heard a sound of iron hitting the deck. Hearing this sound, the scene fell silent again, only the sound of swallowing saliva came out, and the eyes were all aligned. Condensed on the Moby Dick. As the sound of the impact became clearer, a figure also came to the bow of the ship and appeared in front of the world. Whitebeard stood on the bow and laughed loudly and said to Kong, "Kong, we still haven't seen each other for more than 20 years. By the way, why haven't I seen my old friends? Where have Garp Sengoku Zephyr gone?" Anyone can feel the sarcasm in Whitebeard's words. Kong's face is ugly, and he is silent. Is this the strongest man in the world? Whitebeard. The legendary pirate, Whitebeard, finally appeared. Looking at this tall figure with a long handle and a sword in his hand, everyone was a little shocked. After all, Whitebeard is a character comparable to Roger of One Piece, King of Pirates, and Golden Lion, the great pirate admiral. Its strength is self-evident. Rainy days are really unpleasant for those with devil fruit abilities. The drizzle slapped the bare upper body, Whitebeard looked helpless, and a response sounded immediately. Since I don't like rainy days, then let it stop, clear the clouds and see the sun. When a thick voice sounded, there was another surprised voice in the marine. Look, there seems to be another ship floating under the water. Look, rain, dark clouds in the sky. The next moment, when the sound of astonishment resumed, a black shadow even larger than the Moby Dick suddenly rushed out of the water. The carved black dragon shadow on the ship's body was lifelike, and the dragon head was at the bow, and it rushed out of the water at this moment. Time, like a flying dragon soaring into the sky. When the boat fell from the sky and stopped on the water, all eyes were on the front of the crowd on the deck, like the leader wearing a dark green coat and a red square tattoo on his left cheek. By this time the rain had stopped, the dark clouds had dissipated, and the sun had begun to illuminate the earth. Don't you think the sun is too dazzling, or the weather is a little gloomy, so it is worthy of the current atmosphere, Bulululu? Whitebeard looked at the figure and laughed. Snoring. It was cloudless and the sun was scorching hot, but in the next moment there was a sudden gust of wind, dark clouds filled the sky, and the endless changes in the weather made everyone stunned. Why does this man look so familiar? He is the leader of the Revolutionary Army. Monkey D. Dragon. When they exclaimed, all the people looked at in shock, the leader of the huge power that has been competing with the world government, this man known as the most vicious criminal in the world. I didn't expect that one day we would be able to stand on the same front as the Revolutionary Army. Marco had a lazy face, raised his eyelids, and looked at the expressionless man standing on the bow. Marshal Kong, it's not good, there are more than a dozen pirate ships approaching in all directions of Impel Down. Another news came. Kong was stunned. Wasn't the 37 pirate ships outside enough, and asked with an ugly face, can you tell which force it is? Boys, rescue the captain, our Golden Lion pirate fleet can once again dominate the world. I'm so excited, I can still wait for this day to come. Destroy Impel Down, save the captain. The roars continued to spread, and Kong's eyes shrank. Is it the old part of Golden Lion? Gulululu, I said, little devils, stop hiding and come out. Whitebeard laughed loudly, and then black shadows continued to appear under the entire sea area. Water waves appeared one after another, and one after another pirate ships rushed out of the water. This scene was like a carp crossing a dragon gate. That's the red hair pirates. The red-haired man standing on the deck, his group of friends and the clown buggy appeared in everyone's field of vision. And the giant pirates. Walled pirates. Pirates. When tens of thousands of Marines watched this scene, they couldn't help being startled. The pirates who were basically famous in the New World gathered in front of them at this moment. Kong didn't expect it, and they were calling for publicity. There are so many pirate groups. Maybe I'll lose. Kong murmured in his heart, and at this time Marine exclaimed, look at the bottom, what is this huge black shadow? Is it a pirate ship? But this is far beyond the scale of a pirate ship, even bigger than the Hades of the day. Could it be an underwater creature? A giant whale? At this moment, the marine pirates were all staring at the huge black shadow under the water, until a certain moment, when the black shadow appeared in front of the world from the water, and the colorful membrane on the surface ruptured. Everyone without exception, he was dumbfounded and looked shocked. Is this a ship? One can imagine how shocking a large ship that can hold tens of thousands of people, or even hundreds of thousands or more. In front of him, Whitebeard's ship, the dragon's ship, is only a little stronger than the ants. Is this the legendary Noah's Ark? On Noah's Ark, it was Neptune, the three Neptune brothers and others, as well as a huge fish man, Princess Shirahoshi, who quickly grabbed everyone's attention as soon as it appeared. Father, where is brother Zhang Yang? After becoming the center of attention of hundreds of thousands of people, Shirahoshi was definitely nervous, but he still summoned the courage to look around, but he couldn't find the figure in his heart. Look at the sky. A huge black shadow in the sky suddenly descended with a buzzing sound. Chapter 174 The War Kicks Off. A huge black shadow in the sky slowly descended with the continuous increase of the buzzing sound, until at a certain moment, everyone's eyes turned to the motto of the ark suspended on the sea. It looks like everyone is together. Zhang Yang glanced at the surrounding ships constantly, and saw the strong men in the anime, countless pirates gathered because of him, not to mention proud in their hearts, but when his eyes shifted to the figure next to Whitebeard, he was a glimpse. Is this a twin with Byakuya Kuchiki from the world of the god of death? Kuchiki Byakuya was also excited when he finally saw the person he met. Now he can finally ask about the traces of Captain Yamamoto, but he knew that it was not the time, so when Zhang Yang's eyes met, he nodded Vivi and said express intent. Marshal Kong, long time no see. Zhang Yang withdrew his gaze from Kuchiki Byakuya, and when he looked at Kong, his eyes were a little complicated, and he became melancholy, thinking of the days in the very beginning of Marine. Why are you doing this? I really did intend to cultivate you as a marshal. Seeing that the Marine headquarters thought this person was broken, Kong's eyes were also complicated, but before he could finish his voice, he was interrupted by three strange-looking men in white suits standing at the front. Kong Marshal, you are talking too much. Kong snorted coldly, but when he looked at the man, there was a hint of fear in his eyes. Death, you have to be clear, even if you gathered such a group of trash, broke into Impel Down today, and saved people, but you want you to know that in the face of absolute strength, even if you stage a temporary victory, but in the end, he could only fall in a pool of blood. Quote. The man's voice was gloomy. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw Enel stretch out his hand impatiently. When a beam of thunder erupted from between his fingers, the whistling room had already come to the man, but when he shook his figure, he not only easily lifted it to hide. In the past, he appeared in front of Enel asymptomatically in the next moment, and kicked Enel away with one kick. The next moment, his figure flashed again and disappeared from the spot, but the next moment, Zhang Yang suddenly appeared in front of him in midair, holding a knife in his right hand, sneering, CPO, you might not take me seriously. Well. The knife rises, the flame rises, and in 0.1 seconds, Zhang Yang has quickly turned the blade into Shikai, the next moment even if the CPO officer is covered with armament hockey, but when the knife rises and falls, his figure explodes like a kite with a broken string. When he stepped back and returned to his original position, a shocking slash had also appeared on his chest, and blood was flowing. Yes, it really is like a fire. Kuchiki Byakuya looked excited and murmured in a low voice. I tell you, it's better not to be presumptuous in front of me, even your CPOs are just ants in front of me. I know the 5 immortals are watching this scene right now. I'm telling you, if you want to kill me, just get over here. If you're afraid that one of you won't be able to come, then let's go together. After living for so long, I understand how thick-skinned you are. Even if you don't come out now, when I save people, you have to be careful, and there is no need to prepare the coffin. Anyway, I have decided to study you in the laboratory. The voice was like a rainbow. Zhang Yang sneered, looking at the Impel Down standing upright. A hoarse voice came out one after another. As for this Impel Down, I think there is no need to keep it. By the way, I think of one thing, and I think it is necessary to tell you. The corners of Zhang Yang's mouth rose. When I go back, I'd better go to the Holy Land Mariajoy. Marineford will probably no longer belong to Marine by then. What do you mean? Kong looked ugly, and the next moment he took out the phone bug. I'm Kong, how is Marineford now? Reporting to the Marshal, Marineford is all right. Colonel Bastille who left before came back with a group of elites and Marine, and even some new faces, saying that they are willing to join Marine. Damn, arrest them immediately and put them in jail until I come back to deal with them. Kong realized their purpose and yelled at them, but in the next moment, the voice on the other end of the phone changed. Obviously a different person. Kong, Marine has gone off the rails now. You and I are old, there is no need to leave a name after death. Marine can change the dynasty. When this sentence was finished, the other party hung up the phone directly, but Kong was still here shouting, Zephyr, Zephyr, what are you doing? Marshal Kong, I am thinking of getting acquainted. You should leave the world government too. You haven't heard of the truth that everyone pushes the wall down. After Zhang Yang finished speaking, he said, Kuzan, let's do it. Ice Age. A figure appeared out of nowhere, with an ice cone in his hand. When the screen touched the sea quickly froze, and the ice continued to expand until the sea in the four directions of the impel down was turned into thick ice, and all the ships were destroyed. When it is frozen in the ice and it is difficult to move, it will stop. Let's all fight. Victory in this battle will be a milestone before we overthrow the world government. The voices covering the Reiatsu resonated in all directions, and they resonated strongly. At this moment, all the pirates jumped off the boat. When they stepped on the ice, they carried their swords and guns. The sound was like a rainbow. Come. At the same time, the last layer of infinite hell inside impelled down. Outside, something interesting seems to have happened. In the darkness, an insolent laughter suddenly came from a certain prison. Marines are really a bunch of idiots. Do you think Seastone can trap me? Kaka. When a man in prison uniform flew out of the cell, blood dripped from the legs without legs, and the pirates around were stunned for a moment, but then they all boiled. Let us out. Quote. I really want to see the sun outside. But no matter how they shouted, the figure ignored them and flew straight out. With the sound of a scream, the alarm sounded suddenly. Chapter 175 Fierce Battle. Go, defeat Marine, and defeat the world government. Rescue the captain. The Golden Lion pirate fleet dominates the world again. Come on, come on. Take Impel down and let them know the power of our Whitebeard pirates. Impel down sea. There was a sound similar to the second shout from time to time, and the pirates became more and more interested, and the Whitebeard pirates, except for a few people who were ranked close, were already on their way, rushing in. Up front. In the Red Hair pirates, except for Red Hair, Beckman, and Buggy, everyone rushed forward at this moment, and the strength of these cadres was almost the same as the captain-level characters on the Whitebeard ship. And the Revolutionary Army, led by the Demon King Ivankov, also rushed into the battle circle. Fishman Island, under the leadership of the minister on the right, the three Neptune brothers and the Fishman troops killed them at this moment. Although there are only 4 or 5 people in the giant pirates, but the fighting power that erupted at this moment, killing Marine is similar to squeezing ants, as well as the pirate fleet, etc. At this moment, all the forces are gathered together like several torrents. At that time, it was singly advancing. It was like breaking the army. For a time, the world was filled with the smell of gunshots and gunpowder, the collision of swords, loud shouts, and explosions. It was just like this. This war officially kicked off, and a battle of the century broke out. When the giant pirates easily broke through the marine line of defense, 5 figures had already blocked them, drawing their swords and facing each other. The axes opposite. The giants, vice admirals, have taken action. When the pirate ship launched a new round of shelling on the warship, all the shells were indistinguishable, and then several figures appeared in everyone's field of vision, standing on the ice. It's really not that simple. The pirates going paused, and their expressions became solemn. Have all the Marine Vice Admirals come out. I haven't seen so many Marine Vice Admirals together in a long time. These Vice Admirals are naturally all the Vice Admiral in this part of Marine. Momonga, Onagumo, Storoberg, Yamakaji, Doberman and many more. The Vice Admirals are out. Go. Maintain Marine's dignity. Seeing that all the Vice Admirals were shooting at this moment, the Marines who had fallen behind were weak in momentum, but in a moment with several figures rushing in front of them, the Marines' momentum returned to high, and they fought away. You are Foil Vista. I wanted to learn from you a long time ago. When Momonga clenched the hilt of the sword with both hands, and killed the pirate in front of her. She collided with Vista's double swords. CP9, shoot. The CP9 commander Spandam, who was standing at the back, took out his long sword and swung it down and shouted. In an instant, the 9 figures moonstep burst out in front of him, and the speed was very fast, like a cannonball blasting towards the front. Out. And there is a figure that is simply dominating, rushing to the front, and even the captain of the Whitebeard ship, which is ranked behind, is in the middle of the opponent's punches, and his hands burst back, and then the fingertips burst into flames. Shot straight through his arm. Rankyaku, Tempest Kick. Lucci flicked his right foot, and a fierce crossed blue light shot towards the captain in an instant, but at the next moment, a figure covered in blue flames blocked his face and whispered, "He just leave it to me." Marco has turned into a monster, and his whole body is burning with blue flames, rushing towards Lucci. Lucci's fingertips continue to shoot out flames at the speed of light. Recovered. Marco approached Lucci. He kicked him directly. Lucci applied a steel block, blocked it with both hands, and said jokingly, "It's useless at this level." That's it. Marco turned a 360-degree turn, and then kicked Lucci's blocking arm. With a bang, Lucci was kicked and flew out, crashing directly into a warship. The warship was instantly destroyed and filled with smoke. Although the battle is fierce, none of Marine's highest combat power has yet been shot, while Whitebeard, Red Hair, Zhang Dragon, Eagle Eye, Ryoma and a group of men standing at the peak of their strength are also watching the overall situation, like a bystander. Generally. And when these people fight, that's the real battle, and the balance of victory and defeat will begin to appear. "Boss, when can we take action? My hands are itchy." Enel complained to Zhang, who was standing beside the boat with his palm resting on his chin. "If you're in a hurry then go." Zhang said something casually. At this time, a pitch-black cannonball slammed over. Zhang didn't care at all. He was still lying on his face and watching the ever-changing battle situation on the ice. Facing the cannonball, he just raised his palm and his fingertips erupted. A lightning beam burst into the air and exploded instantly. Enel's eyelids were no longer half-raised, and the whole person seemed to have woken up in an instant. With the sound of thunder and lightning on his body, Enel disappeared directly on the deck and appeared in the sky above everyone. Roar! When double-clicking the 2 drums on the back at the same time, a thunder dragon shone with dazzling electric light. In an instant, it appeared between the heaven and the earth. When the dragon's roar came, it descended from the sky and rushed directly into the battle circle, like a broken bamboo. Surprisingly new traces were left under the layer, and at the same time there were shadows of people who were electro-focused. Except the bath of thunder and lightning, ha ha ha. Enel was not idle either. His heart was opened, and lightning beams burst out from his fingertips, passing through Marine's body precisely. From Enel, Fujitora moved, pulled out his long sword, and when he passed through the thunder dragon disappeared, and Fujitora's figure rushed directly to the sky, with a strong pressure from the sword. Cut towards Enel. Whoosh. However, with a flash of lightning, Enel's figure disappeared, appeared behind Fujitora, and kicked it, but Fujitora also reacted instantly and blocked it with a sword. The 2 of them almost kept disappearing and reappearing. The long stick and the sword collided, and the thunder was overflowing. Chapter 176 Kaido of Finding Differences. Everyone, you are the bottom of Marine, but you are also the future of justice. I ask you now, are you joining Marine for his honor, or for better justice and protection of the world? At this moment in the Marine headquarters, all the Marines who have not participated in the war are gathered in the Marineford Square. The few figures standing in the front are Tina, Bastille and others. It is the former Admiral Zephyr who speaks on the high platform. Zephyr escaped from prison. He left Marineford with his students. On the eve of the Impel Down War, they had mixed feelings. One was unwilling to help the tyrant, and the other was that they did not want to fight with their former colleagues. Finally, after thinking about it, they decided not to participate in Impel Down's battle, back to Marine headquarters. The Marines present were all soldiers below the lieutenant, and Zephyr's question made them look at each other, and they fell silent for a while. "Is it for honor or justice?" Zephyr shouted coldly again. "When I was young, I saw my mother killed by a pirate with my own eyes, so I am determined to become a Marine in the future." Colonel Bastille suddenly spoke slowly at this moment. Although the sound was not loud, it shocked all Marine figures, and the memories of childhood began to gradually come to mind. "When I was young, I saw my parents being bullied for setting up a fruit stand, so I wanted to be a Marine and support them. I'm an orphan kidnapped by human traffickers. After I escape, I want to be a Marine and catch all human traffickers. My parents were killed by bad guys. I want to be a Marine. Don't let this happen again." More and more people, the memories of childhood became clearer. Zephyr's eyes were complicated, but he still shouted, "Honor or justice?" "Justice." The voice was like a rainbow, shaking in all directions, and a smile appeared on Zephyr's wrinkled face. "Marine has deviated from the classics. From today, Marine will no longer take orders from anyone. We are only ourselves. We are in pursuit of justice, peace and freedom." Fight happened in Marineford has not yet been circulated, and naturally no one knows. At this moment, the Impel Down is full of fire, smoke is filled with gunpowder, and the two armies are facing each other. The situation has always been changing rapidly. Enel is fighting Fujitora on the ice surface. Thieves can't help covering their eyes. The consequence of this is that Enel and Fujitora are the only two within a few meters of their bodies. Of course, there is also the element of gravity that Fujitora exerts in the air. At a certain moment, when Enel and Fujitora collided with a long stick and a knife, it happened that the ice layer on the ground under their feet suddenly began to crack, and their expressions changed, and the two immediately separated and retreated to one side. And some people with keen senses discovered this and looked there with solemn expressions. Pong! A huge crashing sound began to rush across the entire ice surface. The next moment was centered on the place where Enel and Fujitora had just fought. Suddenly, the ice block within a few meters in a radius collapsed directly, and a huge black shadow suddenly rose into the sky from under the ice. When the sky fell on the ice, even the ice shook. This is. Everyone was stunned for a moment, stopped fighting at this moment, looked at this huge figure, and looked shocked. Where is the god of death? This figure was as huge as a giant clan, and when he glanced at everyone around him, it was like looking at an ant. This kind of gaze could be ignored by others, but Enel was a god, so how could he endure others' contempt for him? "I am a god, how dare you insult me like this?" At this moment, Enel's face was gloomy, and there were thunder arcs on the surface of his body. Not only that, more and more thunder and lightning continued to converge on him. At a certain moment, Enel turned into a god of thunder, and his voice was only transmitted when he was almost as tall as this figure. Out! 200 million volts of lightning. You will pay for your actions. When many people approached Enel, they were directly electrocuted. Everyone looked at Thor with dread. His surroundings became a real vacuum field. Only the giant in front of him was tit for tat against him. I didn't expect Kaido of the beasts to come. Kong looked at the figure with a solemn expression, thanking a pirate for the first time in his life. Although it is not clear whether it is an enemy or a friend, it seems that he can share more than half of the pressure on us. Boom! At this moment, the battle between the two has become the focus of all eyes. Even when Whitebeard, the strongest man in the world, saw this figure, his eyes were full of fear, including Kuchiki Byakuya, Red Hair and others. Enel's thunderbolt fist that turned into Thor slammed into Kaido of the Beast's chest, shaking the sky for a while. Cracks appeared on the ice surface, and at this time, the thunder was as dazzling as the sun. But to everyone's shock, even Enel himself opened his eyes incredulously to find that Kaido of the Beasts was only half a step back for Vivi under this blow. Are you tickling? Kaido of the Beasts punched out, despite the huge size, but the speed of this punch was unequivocal. When this punch hit Enel, it was just a moment, his figure flew out like a kite with a broken string, and the thunder and lightning continued to disintegrate on the way, and his figure directly crashed the two pirate ships, and finally hit on the ground. "Where is the god of death? Come out and fight me." Kaido of the Beasts didn't pay attention to the defeated general, and his voice sounded gloomy. "Gollum." It was silent for a moment, and the sound of swallowing saliva was heard in an endless stream. The marine pirates looked at this man with fear, and couldn't help themselves for a while. "Kaido, if you're a troublemaker, I can play with you." Whitebeard's voice broke the silence, and Kaido of the Beasts glanced at the man standing in the bow and said, "Whitebeard, I didn't come to see you today. It is rumored that the most powerful creature in the sea, land and air, Kaido of the Beasts, the suicide maniac, also made a special trip to find me at this time. It really makes me live longer." When the hoarse voice sounded, Zhang Yang's figure had appeared in the air in front of Kaido of the Beasts. "If you want to fight, I will fight you obediently." Chapter 177 Golden Lion, Out of Prison. When Zhang Yang appeared in front of Kaido of the Beasts, the flowing blade Ruahuo in his hand had already turned into a simple and unremarkable tachi, and the blade was constantly filled with smoke. Impressively, completed Shikai, Bankai in a very short period of time. Rubana Ruo was cremated into a residual fire tachi. "Kaido, I give you two options." Zhang Yang was hoarse and Isho, the captain-level Raya directly centered on himself, swept away towards the surroundings, and said lightly, "Submit." Or. Zhang Yang thought of this guy, as if he couldn't die, so he hesitated at the end, while Kaido of the Beasts was frantic in his eyes. "If you can make me die, it will satisfy my wish." "I'm not happy for you to say that. If you don't surrender, I want you to live without death, be in pain all day or lose your freedom." Remnant Fire Tadaoshi, Remnant Sun Prison Clothes. At this moment, when all the spiritual pressure suddenly retracted and covered Zhang Yang's body, it seemed like spontaneous combustion. The spiritual pressure actually burst into flames, and instantly covered Zhang Yang's whole body and the blade. "Wait until you beat me." Kaido snorted coldly, and punched out of the room as if to break the air, and smashed directly on the residual fire sword. Although neither of them took a step back, Kaido was startled when he looked at the flame, and his brows furrowed. At his level, people who have tried all kinds of suicide methods will not feel pain, but at this moment, when they touch the flame, it seems that the flame has entered the nerve, and the burning sensation is particularly intense. "I feel the domineering of my flame. Do you think I am qualified now?" The small fist collided directly with Kaido's rough giant fist, and the flames overflowed. Not only was Kaido shocked, but Zhang Yang's eyes also showed a look of surprise. Needless to say, the high temperature of the remnant fire sword is natural. Getting caught on fire, but falling on Kaido's place is only a little painful. Although the battle between Zhang Yang and Kaido shocked the surrounding people, as everyone recovered, they fought again, and more people joined the battle circle. Mihawk pointed to the eagle eye. "As long as you are a swordsman, you will want to fight with you. Let's see how far away you are." The battle between Rain Arrow Dragon and Hawkeye is equally fierce. If the battle circle close to Zhang Yang and Kaido will be burnt out by the flames, they will be oppressed by the powerful force and die. So here two swordsmen, as long as someone approaches, countless sword chi will raging. In addition to Ryoma still sitting cross-legged on the ground in the Death God Pirates, the Crocodile Man has also turned into sand and began to harvest Marine's life, but a man in a green suit with horns on his head disappeared from Kong's side at this moment. When Ryokugyu appeared in front of Crocodile, the fist belt hockey, the sound of the sonic boom hit Crocodile, who turned to sand directly, fighting with him. Jia ha 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 ha. While the battle was still going on, a mutation protruded, and the gate of Impel Down was thrown up. Fortunately, Kong immediately noticed it and immediately slid to the side, which was avoided. And as the door was lifted, there was a burst of laughter full of hockey. What kind of hockey was that? It was like a lion swallowing the world, roaring everywhere. Golden Lion. This familiar voice made Kong's face sank immediately, and Whitebeard groaned, his brows furrowed. From the Impel Down, A figure shot forward like a shooting star. The scene of the earth shaking that everyone imagined did not happen. The figure calmly landed beside Whitebeard and was suspended in the air. He has everything of a lion: yellow hair, even if he wears a prison uniform, even if he loses his legs and is replaced by 2 knives, the aura he exudes is extremely domineering. If Whitebeard's aura is an air of loyalty and a tyrannical king, then he is the might of a king who is as inviolable as a lion. "Chiki, what's wrong with your foot?" Whitebeard cast a glance and said in a low voice. "Stay and impel down as a souvenir for them, Gia ha 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 ha." Golden Lion laughed, watching the fierce battle on the ice, and said to Whitebeard, "Roger is a dead brain. If we cooperated at that time, we would have dominated the world. But it's not too late, Whitebeard, since you're here to attack Impel Down. If we cooperate, we'll get 5 points. Whitebeard snorted coldly. "Chiki, I'm afraid you haven't figured out the situation yet. It's not just my pirate group, it's not just my forces." Golden Lion was stunned, his expression changed, and just as he was about to speak, Kong's voice spread immediately. "Golden Lion, how did you come out?" This sound made the old members of Golden Lion stunned for a moment. When they saw Golden Lion, they were so grateful that they were so excited. At this moment, a purple-black poisonous man rushed out of Impel Down. When he saw the fierce fighting outside, he saw Kong and the Golden Lion next to Whitebeard. The poison gas disappeared and returned to normal. Magellan said immediately, "Marshal, the Golden Lion has escaped." "I'm not blind, how did he escape from prison?" Kong asked with a gloomy face, knowing that Impel Down is a prison known as the world's impregnable walls. "He cut off his feet, killed the jailer, and escaped." Golden Lion was a little stunned when he saw that there were no familiar figures on Marine's side. How could there be a lack of those two in this battle? So he shouted at Kong, "Old man, what about Sengoku and the Garp people, could it be a good encounter?" Hearing this, Kong's face became even more ugly, with black lines all over his head. Grumble. Kong and Garp quit Marine. Speaking of this, Whitebeard, I felt refreshed, and laughed for a while. You just came out, and some things are not clear to you. You can make up your mind about these things later. In short, remember, now our enemy is Marine, the world government. The purpose of this time is to destroy the people who rescued Fishman Island from Impel Down. And overthrow the world government. Chapter 178 Kaido's Strength. Kong, Sengoku and Garp are gone. I think you are retired too. The situation is so obvious. Why are you fighting? Let's surrender. Gia ha 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 ha. Golden Lion didn't understand Whitebeard's words very well for a while. It didn't stop him from mocking Kong. At this time, Kong didn't bother to talk to Golden Lion. He had just finished answering a phone call and was lying in Magellan's ear, whispering quietly. "What?" Seeing the next moment, Magellan was stunned for a moment, his face solemn. "Marshal, even if all the prisoners live and die. This is the order of the Gorosei, 5 elders." Kong sighed, feeling a little helpless, but then the CP0 officer next to him took over. Magellan looked complicated, and walked step by step toward the Impel Down, which was quite lost. This time, what brought us together was Zhang Yang, the god of death who fought against Kaido, the former major marine. On the other side, Golden Lion followed Whitebeard's line of sight to the battle circle over there. His eyes shrank suddenly. At this time, the battle between Zhang Yang and Kaido became more and more fierce. During the collision, the void oscillated, and the deep ice layer continued to be shocking. The big hole appeared. Kaido of the Beasts became more and more frightened as he fought. He was not only afraid of the flames, but also had a look of fear in his eyes. At this time, there were burn marks on Kaido's body, and the pain became clearer and clearer. The 91,000-handed cannons of breaking the way. Faced with Kaido's fearful body, Zhang Yang was equally shocked. His mouth seemed to sing, turning his fist into his palm. Countless rays of light erupted from Zhang Yang's palm, like shooting stars on the sky. At this moment, they all shot towards Kaido. "Come." Tips for carving insects. With a cold snort in disdain, Kaido punched out, a powerful impact that caused the burst of light to collapse, and then the powerful impact came to Zhang Yang in an instant. With a wave of Zhang Yang's knife, the flames suddenly rose and turned into a curtain of fire. Boom! When a loud noise came out, although the color of the fire curtain was a little weaker, the impact had completely vanished, but Zhang Yang was relieved. When Zhang Yang saw Kaido's palm aimed at him, he secretly screamed badly. Boom! But it was too late at this time. With the sound of an explosion, a burst of blood light directly covered Zhang Yang, and then Zhang Yang's figure, like a cannonball, turned into a black shadow and shot into the sky. Inertia made Zhang Yang unable to even use his instant body, but in the next moment, he felt that he was shrouded in a dark shadow, and in his pupils, the figure of Kaido of the Beasts had already appeared above him, and he slammed down with one leg. The powerful impact caused Zhang Yang to spit out a mouthful of blood in the air and slammed it down towards the ground. Kuchiki Byakuya's face changed, and he opened his body instantly to catch Zhang Yang, but at a certain moment a dark shadow suddenly appeared in front of him. Kaido slapped Kuchiki Byakuya with a merciless palm, and at this time another one hand has already caught Zhang Yang in the fall. Boss. Publicity. This sudden scene caused everyone who noticed it to be stunned for a moment, looking at Kaido's face as he kept clenching his fists. I am distracted. At the moment when Hawkeye was distracted, the Rain Arrow Dragon slashed forward extremely fast, and when blood spurted out, a shocking slash appeared from Hawkeye's chest. The same is true for Enel, who wanted to teleport, but was directly forced out of the figure by a force of gravity from Fujitora, and a knife slashed at him. Because of distraction, there are still many people who are at a disadvantage in the battle, even Golden Lion, Whitebeard and Red Hair. At this moment, CP0 and Kong are blocking them. Kong, get out of the way. Whitebeard's face was gloomy, and he spoke with a cold voice. As he spoke, a punch caused the air to shatter and collided with Kong's steel-colored fist. Boy, it seems that you are going to die. Kaido saw the fireman clenched in his fist and spoke sarcastically, but when he landed on Zhang Yang's relaxed face and squirming lips, he was stunned for a moment, and the next moment he heard a voice as thin as a mosquito, Bound Road 9092 bands. The first song to stop the tension. The secret in his heart was not good. A fierce light suddenly appeared in Zhang Yang's hand, and it was about to explode, but at the last minute, several huge cloth strips suddenly burst out from Zhang Yang's body, not only directly wrapping Zhang Yang's body. In the next moment, Kaido was wrapped around him, making his clenched right hand unable to exert any more force. Boom! Zhang Yang's whole body has several meters of flames rising up, like a fire god. The next moment, like an explosion, a terrifying flame, a violent explosion, directly made Kaido's palm explode, and Zhang Yang's figure suddenly flew out, and at this moment, the voice suddenly came out. Second song Balian Bolt. Under the convergence of spiritual power, dozens of iron rods were formed, one after another, and finally all of them were inserted into every corner of Kaido's body, completely fixing his body and making it difficult to move. These scrap irons seemed to be troublesome. In Zhang Yang's shocked eyes, Kaido's figure suddenly began to swell at this moment, his pupils exuded a fierce glow, full of bloodthirsty, and even the horns were huge, and the cloth wrapped around the body suddenly burst, and steel pipes are constantly being squeezed out. Terrifying muscles filled Kaido's body. With the appearance of blood lines, the original blood-red tattoos filled the whole body at this moment, like an ancient beast, filled with evil spirits. Whoosh whoosh. And at this moment, all the steel pipes inserted into the body burst out, coming towards Zhang Yang. Not caring about these steel pipes, the residual fire sword slashed forward at will, and all the dozens of steel pipes that hit were turned into ashes, and in an instant, Kaido raised his blood-stained right arm and punched Zhang Yang with a very slow speed. But Zhang Yang found that he couldn't escape, and he couldn't even use his body instantly, as if the space was frozen. The final song is Forbidden 2. A swastika-shaped boulder suddenly fell from the sky, as if to suppress the murderer who was a disaster for the world, but at this time, the flame on Zhang Yang's hand of the remnant fire sword was the tip of the knife that was beginning to shrink, and the smoke rose up and moved forward. Prick. Chapter 179th Rescue. Rewind, rewind, don't get close to them. Is this the world's strongest and the world's strongest battle? In the confrontation between Zhang Yang's stab and Kaido's punch, when a huge swastika-shaped stone fell from the sky and smashed on Kaido's head, everyone within a few dozen meters was like a tragic death. Either it was directly wiped into ashes by the breath of flames, or it was crushed into meat sauce by the powerful gravity, or it was punched by Kaido and suffocated in the condensation space of dry air. At this moment, everyone is temporarily avoiding the edge, with the two as the center, and there is no one within 100 meters. Zhang Yang, they have arranged countless explosives in the 6th floor of Impel Down. Long received a message from the Revolutionary Army undercover lightning in Impel Down. Upon hearing the news, Long did not hesitate at all and shouted out loud. What? Standing on Noah's Ark, Neptune's face suddenly became ugly. When the 3 Neptune brothers who were fighting Marine killed the pirates in front of them, they turned their heads instantly, and when the huge Shirahoshi heard the news, his body was paralyzed. Falling on the deck, the big tears fell down. Kong, when did you become so mean? Whitebeard's face suddenly turned ashen. He punched the air and smashed into Kong's fists, and the questioning voice suddenly came out. Is there any time to detonate? Zhang Yang frowned and shouted. But with this distraction, the momentum suddenly dropped, and Kaido's sarcastic voice sounded, you dare to be distracted when you fight with me. The swastika-shaped stone tablet only made Kaido's figure sink, but the next moment it shattered, and when the flamboyant knife tipped Kong and Kaido's fists smashed together, although there was no flame rising, the scorching high temperature was instantaneous. In Kaido's arm, countless muscles, blood vessels and bones were burned. However, because of Zhang Yang's distraction at this moment, Kaido obviously found an opportunity. The other palm was facing Zhang Yang, and blood light erupted suddenly. 10 minutes, it will explode in 10 minutes, and I've let the lightning destroy the detonator. Just as Long finished speaking, a voice came from the phone bug in his hand, the detonating device has been destroyed. Torch. Hearing this sound, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Zhang Yang withdrew the residual fire sword, and when the flames surged around his body, the powerful impact of the sudden explosion directly knocked back the attacking Kaido. You think too much, even if you destroy the detonation remote control, but... At this time, the chief of CP0 sneered, and then said, it will still explode after 10 minutes. Boom, I can still think of the scene of a huge mushroom cloud rising up. Damn. After a loud scolding, Kaido's figure also burst into front of Zhang Yang, pulling out the horns above his head with both hands, and stabbed towards Zhang Yang at this moment. At the same time, a sneer sounded, worry, but you can only stalemate with me here. Damn, I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. Remaining fire Tadao Beatty on the ashes. Zhang Yang looked anxious, and while his figure moved, he avoided Kaido's attack, and at the same time, a very fast knife slashed towards Kaido's waist. When he appeared behind him, the residual fire knife in Zhang Yang's hand slammed into the ice layer. Nanhuohuo Great Burial Array of 10 trillion dead. Suddenly, the ice layer within a radius of several hundred meters suddenly turned black, and scorched black skeletons continued to lie out from the shadows on the ice layer. What are these things? How is it like a Kainu vice admiral? Why are there so many skeletons lying down all of a sudden? These skeletons were killed by Zhang Yang and some of them were killed by the captain. They were formed by human and ghost ashes, including a Kainu. As soon as these skeletons appeared, they rushed towards Kaido. A Kainu, who turned into a scorched black skeleton, was also elementalized, and the magma fist continued to blast. Kaido just slashed in the middle by Zhang Yang. Except for a shocking scar, his swollen muscles were restored to their original state at this moment, including the tattoo like a beast. These skeletons also include some powerful undead from the Soul Society, but after all, they are dead, and their strength has been greatly weakened, but fortunately, there are a lot of them. The blood was constantly spilling out. It will take a while to kill him, but... Zhang Yang looked a little anxious. The next moment his head turned, the corners of his mouth murmured, and he began to sing. At a certain moment, when Zhang Yang's face turned pale, the surrounding time and space suddenly solidified, and everyone's movements stopped, as if time was here a moment of stillness. Zhang Yang didn't hesitate at all, but within half a second, everyone returned to their original state, and the time flowed again. At this time, the flames of the residual fire sword in Zhang Yang's hand had already pierced into Kaido's heart. What? I saw Kaido's figure froze for a moment, his pupils stared at the boss, and there was a scream, and he wanted to pull out the knife, but how could Zhang Yang make him wish? The tornado continued to burn the organs in his body, the skin was cracked, and the flames filled the whole body. Zhang Yang didn't care about Kaido anymore, he was already mortal. Time still is a forbidden technique after all. If Zhang Yang didn't reach the level of the captain, it would be impossible to release it, but even so, the number of releases that can be done is only this. Once. When Zhang Yang rushed towards the impel down gate, all the marines close to Zhang Yang were instantly turned into ashes by the scorching high temperature. Just after Zhang Yang entered the impel down, he originally interrupted the passage that colluded with the 6th floor by blasting flames from the middle. But when he thought that there was gunpowder, flames could not be used, so Zhang Yang had to give up the idea. Along the way, he didn't even bother with the jailer, he went straight to the elevator, smashed the elevator through with one punch, and Zhang Yang jumped straight down. Outside Impel Down, with the buzzing sound at this moment, the Heavenly King whose power system had been destroyed seemed to have been repaired and flew directly into the air, with two figures in black suits on top of it. The muzzle of the King of Heaven is facing the upper end of Impel Down, the gravitational device is turned on again, and gravity causes the collapse of latitude, resulting in the annihilation of space interest. Chapter 180 The Hope of the Prisoners. Everyone go back, Impel Down is about to explode. Retreat. Stop rushing forward. Impel Down, it was already noisy. After all, the impact of the explosion would definitely involve them. Even if they didn't die, they would have to peel off their skins. Absent-minded, bent on retreating, the marine sword chasing after easily harvested the life of the pirate. Don't be silly boys, you think Impel Down is going to explode, are those bastards in marine still in the mood to fight us here? Whitebeard's voice roared out, all the pirates who retreated were stunned for a moment, and they thought from their perspectives. Marine is also a human, and naturally he would be afraid in the face of death, but what they saw on Marine's face was only more intense. War intent. Kill, boys, if you really want to die, at least Marine here will be buried with us. When will they retire, and when will we retire? When a pirate captain shouted loudly, his subordinates hesitated, their eyes showed a touch of firmness, their hair was full of momentum, and they rushed forward with a knife. Then, all the pirates understood this truth, and once again fight with Marine. But everyone has reached an agreement, try to avoid getting too close to Impel Down. And when Tianwang's gravity is fully opened and aimed at Impel Down, it is about to erupt, and even at this moment, the void of Tianwang's muzzle is distorted, and a black hole gradually appears. But at the critical moment, Whitebeard jumped, and when he was in the air, his hands suddenly pulled the air. The space was instantly upside down and chaotic, and the king's blow also hit a place in the sky. Boom boom boom. In an instant, the void shattered, as if the shell fragments fell, and the shocking black holes kept appearing and collapsing. The pirate marine, who was close, was swept into the black hole by the powerful suction at this moment, and the screams came one after another. The next moment, Tianwang readjusted the muzzle, and the terrifying energy continued to gather. Whitebeard was about to take another shot, but he was blocked by Kong and punched out, and the voice suddenly sounded, "You still worry about yourself." Well. Seeing this scene, Enel directly mobilized the arc to fire, and when a defensive hood suddenly appeared around the king, the blow did not affect him in the slightest. Enel didn't hesitate, and when he turned around, 200 million volts spread out, and when he turned into a giant Thor, he punched the king fiercely. The lightning flashed, and when a punch was thrown, a huge roar suddenly spread out, causing ripples on the defensive cover, but that's all, there was no break. The first stroke. Although Longma has no shadow of publicity, but its talent is strong, at this moment, it still uses this trick. When it bursts from the ground like a cannonball towards the king, it immediately passes the defensive cover and appears behind it. On the waist of the dragon horse. Pung! A crack suddenly appeared on the defensive cover, but after slowly recovering, Enel did not hesitate. When he punched again, there were more and more cracks on the defensive cover. When the second punch was thrown, the defensive cover suddenly returned to nothingness. Ryoma and Enel are fighting against the two world government powerhouses standing on the King of Heaven, and Kaido is still alive and kicking even though his body is burnt into pieces by the flames. These people who are constantly falling in the impel-down elevator passage do not know. Da. In order to determine the time, Jongyang deliberately took a marine's watch while he was in the shuttle, and asked the dragon for the exact time to start the detonation. Watching the second hand keep going, Jongyang's mind was also tense. 4 minutes and 50 seconds left. Let me out now. Bastard marine, actually trying to blow me up, I'm HMPH, if the old man goes out, the marine headquarters will be destroyed. Tread. At the moment when Jongyang's feet landed on the ground, the noise he heard during the fall became clearer, and when it passed into Jongyang's ears, it caused a slight pain in his head. And the appearance of Jongyang made the prisoners on the 6th floor stretch out of the prison at the first moment, with excitement in their eyes, and they all shouted, "Boy, no matter who you are, rescue me. Go, I'll give you a lot of benefits. I have a lot of treasure, save me, I will give you all. I still have a lot of pirate subordinates. As long as you rescue me, they will all obey your orders." The incessant voices are like raging winds and waves. Originally, Jongyang was anxious, but now his mood is even more irritable. Mom, I will shut up. When Jongyang's voice came out, the commander-in-chief level Reiatsu directly swept out. When it swept the entire 6th floor, all the pirates were stunned for a moment, and the infinite hell of Nuoda was silent. Damn it. Someone dares to put hockey in front of Lao Su. Little devil, this is not the group of weak scum above. This is the 6th floor, infinite hell, do you want to die? How many years, how dare you talk to the old man, except for that bastard Zephyr, you are the first. With a sound of anger, like the explosion of a powder keg, the entire prison layer rioted. Boom boom boom, countless breaths, the aura of various powerhouses, all exploded. A large number of hockey flooded the space, causing the chains to rattle, the ground to tremble, and the molecular movement of objects to stop. Jongyang only felt an oppressive force filling his mind, and almost fell to the ground with a staggered step. So strong. His own hockey is comparable to Whitebeard, but he was defeated in the face of this large group of pirates. Jongyang turned his head to look. The eyes in the prison were flickering with viciousness, brutality, and the familiarity of facing death. If this is a battlefield, the dispatch of this batch of pirates with a bounty of at least 300 million will surely cause a worldwide shock. "Oh, funny kid," he whispered softly. The voice was low, but it was clear to Jongyang's ears, but he turned his head and didn't know who it was. "If you want to find the mermaid, just follow my instructions," the voice said softly without any nonsense. Left, right, left, going all the time. Under the guidance of the voice, Jongyang quickly found his target. Princess Yiji and Jingguan were detained in a cell. When Jongyang found them, he slashed the seastone railing in front of him with a knife. The two inside immediately found the person who came. Jinbei frowned and said solemnly, "Who are you, what do you want to do?" "Well, I'm Jongyang, everyone is outside, I'm here to save you." Jongyang cut off the chains and shackles that bound Jinbei Yiji with a knife. Jinbei was stunned. "Aren't you dead?" "These will be explained after we go out."